Contrarian is in the building. We are live. It's Talking Preps.
I thought I was gonna have to do it. I was gonna. Hey, first of all, let's start off. First of all, forget the script. Hey, man, we got to put him in the one shot. Nick Drew, unfortunately, he and Cardinal Gibbons suffered a loss. You got to big him up. Talk. Let's go.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. All right. First and foremost,
You running for office?
Yes, he is. He got to. He got to be political after Nick Drew's defense. We're home with all the rest of us except for Griner.
well, I think the beauty of what we saw last week is multifold. And what I mean by that is only one state champion from last season still is playing, and that's Tarboro in the 1A classification, which speaks to the high-quality competitive parity of North Carolina high school football. And the beauty of it is that now we have an opportunity to see someone make a mark this year, whether it's an offensive or defensive coordinator or other student athletes or both, to make a mark this year and give us a memorable run in the same fashion that Drew did last year. It was on this show where we had the
Alex. We want to hear you talk about Cardinal.
This is coming back up again.
Do you hear this?
Talk about Cardinal Gibbons. You've been talking about Nick Drew all year.
Stop, it can't be dodged.
28 points in the fourth quarter.
28 points in the fourth.
Western Carolina student athletes.
There is no team in this state. There's no team in this state that would have a formidable challenge allowing a touchdown on 4th and 8, and then an interception and a fumble. And Millbrook made the plays when they had to make the plays. I think it's important for us always to realize, and we've talked about this all season long, and it applies to this game, and it applies to a lot of other games, that it's an opportunity for us to celebrate student athletes making plays. And Millbrook made plays when they had to make plays.
Okay, but we've been
Congratulations, team.
He is a deaf.
Yeah, he is so good at
swift.
He's good at
evading.
I feel like we're watching Matrix right now. I feel like
dodgeball's only going to be able to be played for just a little bit.
That's all right. Dale's going to take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
I'm sorry. I got us off track.
I'm confused as to exactly what anyone wants me to say. I came out and I said that another team made plays. And it's on this show here.
No. You don't let us have the other team make plays. The other team never makes plays. Nick Drew has the answers. He always has it shut down. It doesn't matter. They don't even need to show up. You're telling us the guy's the best guy out here.
7 starters back from the state championship team. 7 starters back from the state championship team.
Mason Fortune had a day, and they put up a 40-piece. What did 40-piece?
And he did a great job. This is the same show on which we celebrated a defensive coordinator who defeated whose defensive unit stopped. I shouldn't say that. Put his team in a position to win playoff games against all 3 Mr. Football finalists last year. We talked about that last year, and we have the opportunity to do likewise going forward with us. That's the beauty of one season to the other. We talk about it in the context of that. So we do that.
All right, Dave. It's time to hit the button. We got your monologue.
Didn't rain. That's why.
All right, so we got to start out with a little bit of sad news. As many of you guys have heard, Huff High School lost one of their own, Devin Chandler, shot and killed tragically at the University of Virginia with 3 other teammates. The shot by a former teammate. I want to start out with Coach Jenkins' comments at the press conference yesterday, along with Tad Hudson, and I'll circle back to get you guys' thoughts.
Devin was an outstanding young man. Is an outstanding young man. He had an infectious personality, a unbelievable smile. Every day he brought an energy and exuberance about him to practice, to school, and everything that he did. I just recently talked to our team on Friday about living life to 100% in everything that you did, And I can truly say that Devin did that on a daily basis. I was talking with Chachi Sullivan, who's our defensive coordinator, earlier today, and we were talking about how when we scored touchdowns here when I first got here, guys just kind of handed the ball to the officials and gave each other a high five, and off we went. And Devin was the first one that kind of took it to another level. Somebody else would score and he'd be running down the field from 50 yards, waving, waving his arms everywhere. And he was excited for them as if he had scored. And he comes from a great family. His mother is a wonderful lady, and we give obviously our condolences to him and to her and the rest of the Chandler family as they go through this. And we're going to be okay here. We've got a game to play this Friday, and our team will be ready to go. But we just want to remember Devin at this time as a outstanding young man.
Chandler's, I played with him my freshman year. He's a senior here, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but freshman year, starting quarterback went down, and Devin was one of the first guys coming to me and say, like, "Hey man, you got this. I believe in you. Let's go out and rock out and have some fun." And he's a good kid. Yeah, I mean, he always put a smile on everybody's face. Always danced in the locker room. Yeah, I mean, great guy. Made everybody feel like family. I don't know if it's fully set in yet. It's just kind of crazy. I haven't had anybody that close to me die yet, but I mean, he was a brother, and we fought hard on the same team together, and it's tough. It's tough.
I find it interesting that the kids are being asked about losing kids their age. That's something that never should happen right there.
That's exactly right. This is we've been hit with several pieces of bad news concerning high school students, athletes over the last few weeks, and this is no different. I think it really should drive home to people that you do need to live your life to your fullest as each day, because you're not promised tomorrow. And we say that about the game, to play every play like it's your last. I don't know, like, it's a sad situation that someone has to lose their life to such a circumstance as well. It's unhealthy.
Yeah, Grace, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and for full effect, my head coach, Deshaun Baker, was his offensive coordinator. I don't know why I'm blinking here, but sorry, I'll talk through it. My head coach was actually Devin Chandler's offensive coordinator while he spent his time at Huff. And I mean, one of the big things about him is that he just stated how the energy. I think that's a consistent theme there. He's an infectious, energetic kid that I think that everyone just loved to be around him. And I think you hate when you're in a situation where you have a kid die, of course, at such a young age. You hate it even more when he's such an amazing kid and just really brought value to everyone he was around. So I think we're all praying for the family, and I just pray for the Huff community as they continue to kind of go despite this horrible tragedy.
Gary, I know you just got in, but what are your thoughts here?
It's tragic. I've had it happen to me probably about 4 times in my career, where you get that call from the principal the night before school and say, "Hey, I want to give you a heads up. One of your students has passed away, and just want to make sure that you're okay with coming to class tomorrow and how we're going to, conduct things." And then, it hadn't happened to me in a long time, but I still can remember we used to have these written roll books, and you go down the roll and you call out names, and then you get to that name of the student that just passed, and you kind of hesitate, you skip over it, you try to keep moving, but it's rough. I had one football player at Providence that died right after practice, not as a result of practice, but right after practice on the way home, accident. Another one at Vance, I can't remember whether it was in football season or track season. He did both sports.
Right.
And he got killed in a car accident away from the building, but still, when you get that call from your principal and they, first they want to check, see if you're able to handle it as a professional the next day. And then, they tell you to come in a little bit early so that you can meet with the guidance counselors. They bring in grief counselors, and how to address it, with your students when they come to class. But it's tough, when a young person dies suddenly like that.
Yeah, Alex, last word here.
The only thing I can say about this is, and like Gary, I've been through this several times as an athletics administrator, and still am haunted by each one of them. The only thing I can say, and I remind our students wherever I am about this all the time, is that I hope that students think enough of me that maybe they'll come to my funeral one day, that under no circumstances whatsoever should I be coming to theirs.
No.
And it is that there are no words for it. It is still chilling. The one time at a memorial service for a student who died by suicide, that some students brought some flowers to put at the front of the room where the service was held, and afterwards thought it would be nice to present them to the students' parents. And I said, yes, that would be very nice. And then the students looked at me and said, would you go present them to his parents, please? They're just,
there's no words.
There are no words for it. So I just remind young people out there that, I mean, hopefully you think enough to come to our funerals one day. We should not be coming to yours.
Amen. Amen. Cameron, Huff still has a football game to play. I know you're going down to East Forsyth on Friday. Does this change the tenor of that game at all for Huff?
I think it's definitely going to be one of Jenkins' toughest coaching jobs, regardless if he's ever won a state championship or not. I think getting his troops rallied for a game like this after such a tragic event is not something that any coach ever wants to do, and it's something that's very hard to do. So it's kind of the whole playing with emotion versus playing emotional thing that we've talked about before on this show. Are the Huff students able to play with emotion and play for this young man, or are they going to let the emotions overcome them? And so, I mean, it'll be a tough job for Jenkins.
Yeah. Guru.
I kind of echo the sentiments that, am I gone?
No, you're on screen.
Oh, I see a black screen, but anyway, I'll keep talking. I kind of echo the sentiments that Cam said. It's going to be a tough situation for Coach Jenkins, for Coach Chachi Sullivan, that entire coaching staff to keep those young men and even the females and all the people part of that team to keep their minds in the right place as they go up there to take on a really, really good football team at East Forsyth. And East is still going to be there. So, you got a game to coach, but yet at the same time, you got to kind of make sure you're taking care of these young people and their minds. And, the game can either go one of two ways. Huff can really step up to the challenge and, they can go somewhere big, or, it could go the other way. You just never know, because, again, we're dealing with 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boys on the field, and you just don't know which way it can go. But it will be a tough task for the coaching staff.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to talk about that game a little bit later in the show. But right now, I asked Dale to talk about his three biggest surprises from a pretty wild 3-day week of week 2 of the playoffs. So we'll get into that. Mr. Ross.
Okay, so wow, you're right. It was a wild week, and just to start out, I had some honorable mentions. You asked for 3, and I thought I'd hit 5 real quick. I was a little shocked at not just surprised, but shocked at the Jacksonville win over Havelock. That one really surprised me. The West Charlotte High Brighton game surprised me in that it was such a big score for West Charlotte. I just didn't expect that kind of a blowout. Hillside versus Apex again. That one's shouldn't have been that close. I didn't think going in. So that one surprised me. And I know that Drone had beaten Mitchell earlier, kind of, I won't say handily, but beat them decently well, but I thought this game would be a little closer. I did pick drawn. That one kind of surprised me. And I was floored. I almost put this into the shocker category. I mean, it was, real close to putting Nick Drew's defense giving up 42 points. That one really kind of sent me sideways. I don't know about everybody else. I think it got Grice at least. Over here on the shockers, first thing I'm going to do, I got a little line up here. I'm going to do this for the. So.
Oh my God.
That's for the first one. Number 3 wasn't the fact that Independence beat Olympic. It was how badly they beat them. Now, I would have expected not been surprised at a 21-point win. I felt like it was, a very, very tall task to think that Independence would struggle in this game. I understand Gary got some grief because he didn't have faith in Olympic this past week. Well,
yeah, it's not just Gary got some grief. We all got a little grief.
Exactly. We don't pick teams because we dislike you. We pick teams because of what the body of work tells us, and everybody picked Independence in this game. But what really shocked me in this game was that at about the midway in the first quarter, I was there with a good friend of mine, and we looked at each other and we said, yeah, this ain't going to go well. I didn't even watch the game in the second half.
Wow.
I did. I stood up there and ate burger and talked to people, then went down and talked to
Did you see Karen Belt? Did you see Karen Belt?
Yeah, and then I did. I had a nice conversation with her. It's really impressive over there at Independence, the way the fans are getting back into it, the spirit over there. I talked to DJ's dad. He's feeling real good about things, and I had a great short conversation with DJ Friday night.
What about the cheeseburger, Dale? What about the cheeseburger?
The cheeseburger is worth it. So Karen kept telling me, get the cheeseburger. And the only bad thing was they were out of condiments by halftime.
Oh my God. You can't have a cheeseburger without any ketchup and mustard, a little slaw.
Let's go, DJ.
Come on,
I like that.
Exactly. They gotta correct that. Well, they do a great job. I understand it.
Dale, you didn't have some hot sauce in your pocket?
Oh, Dale,
I did not. I should carry this around with me, I think, but I did not.
Down at the door.
But honestly, the burger was so good that it didn't really need much.
Okay. Well, I bet they had good burgers up in Cleveland County. What do you think about?
So I don't think we're surprised that Burns won. And by looking at the first time that they played and the things that went down in that game, it was a pretty big defensive domination by Burns the first time they played. And boy, when I saw that score, I was sideways because I really thought Shelby would at least attempt to make a game of it early. Mm-hmm. I did not think Shelby could win this game. I did not think, though, this game would be greater than 14 to maybe even 21 at the most.
I mean, Burns might correct me, but I think Burns held their passing game to less than 50 yards or 3,000.
They dominated. It was a domination just on both sides.
Well, Burns is really figuring out they've been playing well all year, but their identity is not what it's been in the past and the offensive scheme. They're a lot more spread. They still do like a lot of pulling the guards, some G-wraps and different things like that. But a lot of times in the past, they've had a lot of misdirection, H involved. Mm-hmm. They don't really have an H this year. And so
they don't have a lot of size in the backfield to that extent. I agree. Absolutely.
And I talked to Coach Devine. I think he does a phenomenal job, and he's really figuring out what they do well. And now they're very tough to beat. I would say they're by far the favorites in the 2A.
Wow,
I think so.
What in the heck happened up in the mountains?
Well, I'm just going to say the only bump that Burns is going to hit might be Monroe, and I just can't. Right now, you just can't see that. Now, My second lineup from in my lineup of shots is this right here. Now I love this stuff.
You gonna
I
take
hate
a shot of apple cider vinegar?
Yeah, I hate to take it as a shot, but I'm kind of, I think most people find this stuff to be sour.
It
Or
burns.
two,
Take it
I'm gonna
down,
sip
big
it
dog.
through as we talk about this because I love this stuff.
It burns.
I soured on my pick and my thoughts of this game. I thought that
Ooh, my
Chambers
God.
and their speed and their size
Not
would
on the
just be
wet,
too
cold
much
field.
for AC Reynolds.
Well, they went up 9-0. They jumped on them early, but then AC Reynolds just came back and they got a big pass over the top and got right back in it.
Exactly. I mean, I had put AC Reynolds into my top 10 way back in week 2. They're a good squad, but I really thought that Chambers' defense would shut them down and they would be able to develop some offense.
Chambers' defense did do the job, right, Gary?
I would think so. I mean, if you hold a team to 17 points, you should win the game. So the problem to me doesn't look like it was Chambers' defense. It looks like it was Chambers' offense.
Well, more so, yes.
It just depends
Obviously.
on the drives. It depends on like if they had long sustained drives. Sometimes a long drive that takes 6-7 minutes and they get 3 points is just as bad as scoring right away, though. I don't know how they game.
So they had a turnover. They got down in the red zone, like inside the 10. They had a fumble or interception. They had a turnover down. Maybe it was a loss on downs, but they had a chance to take a lead late and lost it. And AC Reynolds kicked the field goal and they ended up throwing a Hail Mary from about the 40-yard line to try to win it, and it got away. And congrats to AC Reynolds. They've been good all year. When they beat A.L. Brown, I told Bryce when they beat A.L. Brown the way they did, I was like, Reynolds is going to be a problem. And here they are in the playoffs. So you got to.
Well, I think it's a testament that you've got to have both sides of the ball to go deep. Chambers a good squad, but you got to really be solid.
Real quick, I think one thing that we also have kind of give credit with, like, especially doing it last year, going up to the mountains is tough. And I think that's added a very creative element to the playoffs with guaranteeing the 9 conference champions. So you know that one of us, more than likely from down here, if not 2 of us, depending on the team, is going to have to go up there and win a game. And I think that that's been, one of the big things I think no one's talking about. Again, the teams are good up there. Asheville is great. AC Reynolds is great. Those teams play with a lot of pride. There are a lot of fans that come out and support. But us going down there to go, taking that trip to go up there has become a major factor, and I think it's another year where it's shown. And unfortunately, it's
going to be 20. It's going to be
Bryce,
21.
I took that into account last week. If you remember, in the past, we've seen Weddington go up and win.
Mallard Creek,
Sun Valley, right?
Yeah, Sun Valley.
We've seen teams go up in the mountains and play better because of the speed that comes from down here, and I oversold that.
They got Butler on the wet. I mean, not Butler. They got Chambers on the wet field. But Butler's going to be playing. It's going to be 21 degrees at kickoff on Friday night.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game.
They call it
winners here.
Well, Gary, today CMS told the media they have been investigating Chambers for 4 weeks for alleged misuse of funds from the Booster Club. You're a former Chambers teacher, coach. How does that strike you?
Without knowing more details, listen, when I got in the school system way back in the late 80s, I had a principal sit me down and tell me, he said, Rich, there's 2 things that'll get you fired in CMS. He said there are 2 things. He said you mess up the money, or you have an inappropriate relationship with a student. He said those 2 things will get you fired. He said anything else, they can, finagle, you might get suspended, you might get written up, or, something of that nature. He said, but if you mess with the money, or if you mess with a kid inappropriately, you're going to get fired. So I'm hoping that nobody mess with the money inappropriately. One of the things a lot of booster clubs or schools do is they kind of subdivide the money where each team does their own fundraiser so that they get to keep 100% of the money that they raised for whatever. It could be working the concession stands, it could be selling cards, it could be selling mattresses, car washes, whatever. But the principal has the discretion of moving money from one account to another, in the best interest of the school. So you may have the volleyball team that's out making all of this money for their sport, but they need it for, say, the football team or vice versa. And the principal can, and the AD, they can move that money. And then if that's what the case is, you let the coach know of that sport and whoever the team parent is of that sport, hey, we had to do this or that. And I'm hoping it's no more than something where money for one team got used by another team, and they can straighten that out. It still belongs to the school.
Right. Dale, you've been in booster clubs before, and one thing I did want to mention is we all know Chambers changed their name last year from Vance. Is it possible that maybe they had accounts under Vance and it just got messed up when they moved the account over to Chambers, had to get a new IEN or something? And beyond that, can you just kind of explain 30 seconds how booster clubs work for people?
Well, yeah. So I helped take over a booster club and rebuild it here in CMS. And there's a lot of things in the handling of a booster club in CMS and how CMS has things handled. All money goes into one kitty, first of all. No matter what the sport, they all come into one point. But people fundraise for different things and obviously for different sports. The fundraising involves some collection of money. The person doing the fundraising typically will be the person that will accept the checks or the cash. It's turned over to the treasurer or to the AD. So there is an AD overseeing everything. That while the booster club is 100% made up of parents and people associated that are not administration in the school, the AD in CMS oversees it. So could there be some monies lost or funding lost or hidden because of the name change? I would say that's possible, but I would think that would have come up sooner than now, not 2 years into the change. So
yeah, well, we'll keep following that. I want to circle back real quick. Tim Pride, when we talk about AC Reynolds, he said field goals win games too. So I want to put that up. That is very true. Field goals do win. Kickers are important. I think every good high school football team needs a good kicker and a good punter. There was a team that had a negative punt last week. So I remember somebody telling me with negative yards.
Reynolds did. I was watching it. Yeah.
However, Independence during all that big run of games.
Oh, they would beat everybody 90-0.
And they couldn't kick a kickoff deeper than the 35-yard line.
And they still beat everybody 90-0.
Yeah. So they didn't have a kicking game. They didn't have a punting game either.
All right, Guru, you ready? You gotta come off mute. You're not ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, we're going to find out who Grice and Griner picked as the players of the week. And we come back, the Guru is going to take over. We're going to break down all the playoffs. Buckle in.
What's going on, everybody? Hey, we're back for another special GG. That is Grice and Griner edition of GG, Grice's Gems. Round 2 of the playoffs have just concluded. Again, we had to highlight some of the greatest players from across the state. We're going to start and go out to Belmont. We've got Patrick Blee. Again, this guy's a freshman quarterback. He's been doing it all year. South Point's been really good this year, and he's a big reason why. Freshman quarterback was 4 of 6 passing for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 74-41 win over the reigning 3A state champ Dudley on Friday. He also ran it 17 times for 198 yards, as you can see, and 3 touchdowns. Again, for the season, he's only thrown for 525 yards and 10 touchdowns, but he's rushed for 1,303 yards and 17 scores. Griner, talk about this freshman quarterback.
Well, the cool thing is his number. You know, he didn't get no dibs on good numbers, and he's rocking like 30 at quarterback.
He's a freshman. What do you got a ninth grader number?
He's got poise, though. Check it out. Like, look at his
Definitely.
decision making. Like, triple option teams, you have to be a great decision maker at the helm, and that's what he is. And you got a freshman; they're going to be a tough out for 3 more years after this as well.
Oh my goodness, a tough kid right there. Again, a freshman taking down the reigning 3A state champs. Big time victory for those guys. But yeah, let's keep it going forward. Let's go out to Raleigh. Millbrook with a big time win. Ty Broughton. We talk about receivers out there. We don't normally bring his name up first. Ty Broughton of Millbrook caught 7 passes for 148 yards and a touchdown in a 42-30 come from behind win over the 4A state champions Cardinal Gibbons from last year. Millbrook outscored Gibbons 28-3 in the fourth quarter. Again, this big-time performance. Gibbons did slow down Nathan Leacock, the Tennessee commit we always talk about, but Broughton had a big night in making up for that production, averaging 21.1 yards per catch from QB Mason Fortune. Hey, big-time receiver. Again, we always talk about grind on defense. When you try to stop one, somebody else is poised for a big night, and he had that big night, Griner.
Yeah, and just kudos to their offense coordinator to highlight, like, they didn't like the matchup with the number 1. They went with the 2, and this guy looked like a 1. Woo. So being able to dominate and take down the state champ, that's huge for this program. Millbrook moving on.
Definitely. Again, big-time win for Millbrook. We see Ty Broughton was the reason why. Had to highlight him. We've had Leacock. We've had Fortune. Glad to get a third guy. I think that's a record for any team in the state from Millbrook at Grice's gym. Next, let's go down east to Christian Paris out of Princeton. This 5'11", 170-pound senior ran 30 times, 401 yards, and 5 touchdowns in a big 71-34 win over Hyde Trask. Again, we're in the top 40s talking about public school rushing performances in state history. Always got to highlight that. Griner, as a senior, probably told his coach, I don't care how many carries you get me, I'm making sure we get this big-time win.
Well, I'm going to make sure that this is really Christian because it looks like Leonard Fournette. I think they snuck Leonard Fournette in the game, and he rushed for 400 yards. He's wearing number 7 too. Wearing number 7 too. We might need to check it.
Oh my goodness, exactly. I mean, again, big time performance. I love seeing seniors when we're in a game where I might go home. I need to put the team on my back and make sure that we're going to be good here. So that was a great big time performance. All right, here, going back to the Charlotte area, one of the rare Grice's gems in a loss here. Hudson Stalen from Pine Lake Prep. Again, they lost 48-13 to Salisbury. Stalen had 21 solo tackles and 11 assists. I mean, it's one of those that's like, whoa, you had to type back to Coach Trotter, say, are you sure? He got me those numbers. He got us a film to show. These 32 tackles included 3.5 tackles for a loss, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass defense, and 2 QB hurries. Again, set 3 school records in the same game, Griner. Clearly, most tackles in the game for 32, most tackles in a season, 138, and most tackles in a career with 385. Big-time performance, Griner. Got to talk about a defensive guy. I've got you a heck of one right here.
Yeah, even though in a defeat, I'm talking about this guy right here is playing every aspect of the game, the best ability he could. I mean, at the end of the game, he knew he gave it everything he had. Ain't no doubt about it. No, he played one side of the, just
that's an ice bath
amazing.
Guy, Griner.
Really is.
That's a big
yes.
There. Definitely. Again, we're showing this because I know some people are going to talk about, oh my goodness, did he really have those tackles? Did he go here? We're actually filling up more air just to make sure you guys are aware here. He had the 32. Again, big time performance there. All right, Griner, now we're heading to the Salisbury area. We've got a guy that we had to give the call this week, and that is Jamaica Wells from Salisbury. In a 48-13 win over Pine Lake Prep. Again, Jamaica, you ran for 25 times, 172 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Again, now let's put it into context. You have 1,918 yards rushing for the season and 5,360 for your career. Again, career yardage ranks 3rd in Rowan County history. You set a new single-season rushing mark last week, breaking a 12-year-old record set by, we all know the name, Romar Morris, with 1,780. Again, your 34 touchdowns this season breaks a 10-year-old school record of 32 set by Justin Ruffin. Again, big-time stats. That's why you had to get the call. Jamaica, talk about, you guys prep coming into this game and just your mentality against a tough Pine Lake Prep team.
We had a good week of practice because everybody was doubting us. They were saying like how they was gonna beat us and stuff. Yeah. So we just went out there and shocked them because we don't take that too kindly at Salisbury.
What's that quote? What's that one bulletin board quote that you had this week? I see it in your eyes. I see it in your face. Somebody said something that got you motivated. Tell us what it is.
So, I didn't really have a quote, but
okay, yeah. They just told you have people. Who was telling you though? I mean, did you go to the grocery store? Did someone tell you, hey, I don't know if y'all gonna get it this week? Somebody doubted you.
It was like everybody just they just don't believe in us. They just say like, how we gonna lose, shaking around, like how we. They just don't believe in us. So we just
they don't think you're scared. They don't think you played enough people. They don't know if you competed at a certain competition.
Yeah, they always say
one thing. I can tell you one thing. I know some colleges are looking at you, brother, but I went to Catawba College in Salisbury. Love at you, baby. And I hope you go to Catawba because right now you could play for them right now and make them a better football team. I'm talking about like play on Friday and then like pack up shop and let's go work down the street at Catawba on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
I like it. So, Jamaica, let's get into your record-breaking season because I remember we've had you on, had your highlights. Romar Morris, I think, reached out to you on Twitter again. I think talking about how great you were. I mean, talk about that. Just talk about how cool it was to be recognized by someone who's doing big things from your hometown.
I mean, it's great. Like that's who I trained over the summer. So like we have a connection. Like it's just like we just real close. So that's thankful to be noticed by him. That's very thankful.
Oh, definitely. Big time, big time. Okay, so moving forward, we know again, we got Burns. I mean, we knew that it was going to be a big matchup. You know about Shelby, you know about Burns, but to see that score, I mean, Burns put a whooping on him. I mean, I'm with Cox Mill. We scrimmage Burns in the preseason, so I know the type of team that they are. Have you got a chance to look at them initially? What are your thoughts about this big time matchup against Burns?
Me personally, I don't watch film till Monday, but they're a pretty good athletic team. They can do some damage, but if we play how I know we can play, it's going to be a pretty good game.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I'm excited. This is one of the games I've got circled as my game of the week. But, Jamaica, I'll tell you this. You have 5 touchdowns again. We're going to have to give you the call. Hey, go ahead and get your Sunday, get your church in, and get set up at the table because we're going to have to give you the call again for a great performance. So, Jamaica, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you. As we always say here on Grace's Gyms, keep balling, and we'll keep having you on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's it, man. Cat you, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, so again, if you have a big time performance, Grinder, we're getting into round 3. We know some big names aren't here, but we're getting into some round 3 performances. If you have a great performance, please reach out to me at Coach Jay Grice. Reach out at Observer Preps, at Langston Wirtz Jr. Hey, we're getting some performances. I love this seniors. We have that senior that just does not want to quit. He usually finds us well on his Grice's Gyms list. But again, as we always say, Grinder, hey, if you ball,
you're going to get the call, and it's going to be a Thanksgiving call, brother.
Hey, we're getting a turkey call. We'll see you next week.
That's right.
All right, man. I like that Thanksgiving Day practice. I was fortunate to do that a couple times. But anyhow, hey, let's get here and start talking about some football playoffs. I know that's what everybody signed on to do is talk football. So let's go ahead and do it. We're going to start with the 1A. Let's take a look at this week's 1A football power rankings. There you see it right there. Tarboro number 1, Andrews, Mount Airy, Eastern Randolph, Thomasville, Drum, Murphy, Robbinsville, Northmore, and Northampton. That's going to shake out the 1A rankings. Now let's start looking at the playoff brackets, and we'll start with the 1A East. I'll give you a brief little rundown of how I see the playoffs, and then I'll open it up to you guys and let you guys kind of start going it. There you want to start right there on the 1A East. Number 1, Tarboro hosting Riverside. Tarboro won that game 50-14 back on October 14th. This is really a contrast of styles in that game. Tarboro's only thrown the ball 27 times, but they've rushed the ball 400 yards. And, oh, by the way, a little factoid I found out of the 13 guys that have touched the ball for Tarboro this year, only 4 of them are seniors. So a lot of underclassmen really getting it done for Coach Jeff Craddock's team. There you see West Columbus at Northampton. Just a couple years ago, Coach George Privet had that Northampton team in the championship game. So I know that that's going to be a good one. Rosewood and Hopton, again, a contrast of some different styles. By the way, Hopton played Rosewood. That was a 41-13 game that Rosewood won back in October. Hopton hasn't lost since. And Hopton really has some playmakers. Grice, I'm sure you'll kind of break into them. But Cole Weeks, Bobby Dow, they've got some really studs that have been getting it done. And then looking at the bottom half of that 1A East bracket, Perquimans going over to Robbins to take on Northmore. Northmore undefeated. Coach Andrew Caruth has done a bang-up job in the last 2 or 3 years at Northmore. I think they've only thrown the ball 44 times this year, but they've rushed it for, I think, well over 4,000 yards. Colby Ritchie, Jakari Gillis are some of the guys that have really been getting it done for them. But I'll throw it out to you guys. Grice, I'll start with you here in the East, and we'll go to Alex and kind of get you guys' take on these games.
Yeah, there's two of the games I'm looking at. I mean, you look at the Hobson-Rosewood game. That was a pretty dominant win by Rosewood, but you had 4 interceptions by QB Cole Weeks, which led to that going on. I think that was a big thing. You turn the ball over a lot against a good team like that, you're going to end up on the raw end of the deal there. I don't expect to see that repeat performance happen again, so I've definitely got my eye on that team. Again, Hobson, again, being able to throw the ball all over the park, I think it's been successful for him, and I think it'll continue to do so. The second one I'm interested with, North Moore has had a phenomenal season so far. Play a pretty tough Perkins team. I think that's going to give them a scare early, but I love it, Guru. In their end zone, RPO. It's RPO, not run pass option that we're used to. No, run people over. That's in their end zone. And you've got Dakari Gillis and Colby Ritchie, 2,000-yard rushers on that team. North Moore's only thrown the ball for 300 yards this year. They RPO, so I expect to see a lot of that, running people over. But those are my 2 games I'm looking at on the East.
Alex, you're really familiar with the East. What do you see in some of these matchups? Can we see anything out of Tarboro versus Riverside round 2?
Absolutely. To dovetail off of what Grace just said, RPO, run people over. To put some names and faces, some names specifically on what Grace said and what Guru just said, Mason Satterfield is the 1,000-yard rusher for Tarboro, and right behind him at about 890 or so yards is Cameron McDowell. Satterfield is a sophomore. McDowell is a 9th grader. So people would think that there's not much to talk about as this Tarboro beat just goes on year after year after year. No, we've got new names to talk about. And the fact that this beat is continuing with a sophomore and a freshman leading the way, wow. RPO, run people over. And until somebody shows that they can stop Tarboro from RPO, forget it.
I love it, guys. Well, hey, let's go ahead and move things over and start talking about the 1A Western bracket. We'll start out there in the far west. Well, not really the far west. We'll go all the way to Ramseur, but number 8, Robbinsville, traveling to Randolph County to take on Eastern Randolph. That's a clash of 2 of the most veteran head coaches in the state. Coach D. Walsh at Robbinsville, Burton Cates, obviously, he's a future Hall of Famer at Eastern Randolph. Eastern Randolph, their only loss of the season was in week 1 to Eastern Alamance, who, by the way, is still playing deep in the 3A playoffs. And they played a really tough 2A, 3A schedule with a win over a 3A power Burlington Williams. They beat Randleman, who's pretty good, and they've got Everard Cassidy, who's just a really, really good running back. He rushed for 205 yards last week in their victory against Mountain Island Charter. Then you look at Cutler Adams. Obviously, that young man has rushed for like almost 5,000 yards, and he's only a junior in his high school football career. So that's going to be some big-time heavyweights going at it over there in Ramseur on Friday night. Hayesville going over to Mount Airy. Hayesville's kind of a little bit under the radar at 7-5 going on to Mount Airy. They got that senior Logan Caldwell, who's done a lot of good things for that Hayesville team. But do they have enough to go up against Coach J.K. Atkins' Mount Airy team? I don't know. Tyler Mason is one of the best running backs I've seen on film this year in the 1A. And then, Dale, I know you'll talk about this one right here, but Drone going to Thomasville, Cushwa Stadium. It don't get no more North Carolina than Cushwa Stadium in the playoffs. Thomasville, of course, we know about all those big-time Allen Brown and Benji Brown-led Thomasville teams that just won numerous amounts of state championships year in and year out. I remember Coach Kevin Gillespie that came down from Greensboro Page is running the show in Thomasville now. Drone comes in 11-1. They're just an exceptional football team. I think they're balanced on both sides, and I'll let you get into that a little bit more, Dale. And then finally, the big one over there at Hugh Hamilton Stadium in Andrews up there in Cherokee County. You got Murphy going to Andrews. And by the way, I didn't realize this may be the only time it's ever happened, but Andrews is looking to beat Murphy 3 times in a row if they can win this second round playoff game. But we'll start with this one. And Dale, I'm going to let you go first with this Drone and Thomasville game.
Well, it's a big game. Chris, Drone is very balanced in their offense, but they put up over 4,000 yards. The quarterback, Elijah Tillery, I'm sorry, I keep looking over at the screen to see you guys. He's got a QBR of 127. I like to point out QBRs because quarterbacks are pretty important, especially when they throw a lot, and how efficient are they? And he's been very efficient 27 TDs and only 3 interceptions on the season. That's not bad with a little over 1,800 yards passing so far. They do have a good rushing attack too. Nigel, I think his name is pronounced Dula. If you guys know, speak up. 1,100 yards, 17 TDs. He's a go-to guy. He averages over 11 yards a carry. I think that's pretty impressive. Thomasville, you mentioned the state championships. They also have a Western North Carolina championship. For those that aren't aware, we used to have another association years ago. That's a storied program, and I like to look in to see what kind of stats I can come up with. And Thomasville doesn't put a lot of stats up, but I did watch some film on C.J. Dickerson, the quarterback. And oh my gosh, this kid is fast. He's got moves. He runs. It looks like they are primarily a option run type of offense. I'm a Thomasville fan, but I only know them this year from what their results are looking like. Offensive wise, Drawn is put up almost twice as much in points as Thomasville. So I think we're going to have to see Thomasville pull out a very good defensive game, and I think they can do it. They've played very well this year, so I'm expecting this to be one of those nail-biting type games.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a big-time game in this Western bracket. And you're right about that running tandem, that 1-2 combination of Nigel Dula and Justice Cunningham for Drone has proved to be really lethal throughout the year. Grice, I know you always like following that Western North Carolina football. Any thoughts of you? Again, I think that Cherokee County battle between Andrews and Murphy is going to be good. Any other games that really stick out for you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that's the one that sticks out. And I mean, yes, Andrews won that game 42-12. Again, another game where you go back and look at the box score and we look at some of the film. I mean, Cole Laney, for the senior quarterback for Murphy, threw 5 picks in that first meeting. I mean, absolutely killed them with turnovers. I don't anticipate he does that again. And I think that, they'll make the adjustments. And I think this one will at least be a close game early. If Murphy can keep the turnovers down and Cole can make some great decisions, watch out for them being in a great spot there. And again, if they can go up early on Andrews ain't a team that was throwing it. The last matchup they played, they had 1 completion out of 4 attempts. So they're not going to be a team to throw it. So if Murphy can get out strong and maybe get up to a lead, I think it'll be a fun game.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say it just because I wanted to say his name, but junior running back Hunter Stalkup, I just think that's a great name. He had 293 yards and 3 touchdowns last week in Murphy's win over East Wilkes. And I do think that Murphy team is much better than maybe the 9-3 record that they've shown. I do think that it's going to be a formidable challenge against Andrews. But I think that's going to put a bow. Alex, any final thoughts on the 1A West?
Yeah, just very quickly, I want to mention that Hayesville at Mount Airy game. What that really does right there is shows us this is a great Smoky Mountain Conference showcase on the road this week. The number with 2 Smoky Mountain games on the road to give people a real sense of how competitive that conference has been for decades. And you stop and think that Hayesville, being in a position to play in the 3rd round, Hayesville really hasn't been in that state championship mix throughout the years. But you see the prowess of that program being in the 3rd round. And then we talked earlier about how Andrews is in a position this year. All right, so Swain, Murphy, and Robbinsville have combined for 32 1A state championships. Andrews still has yet to advance to a state final. I mean, we are seeing – I don't even think rare is the word. Nobody beats Swain, Robbinsville, and Murphy in the same year. Andrews has done it. So we're seeing that in a really special way, and we're seeing the fact that a conference this deep with Hayesville on the road and then Robbinsville on the road, so 3 of the 4 teams on the road, 2 outside the mountains, the state as a whole is getting a great glimpse of Smoky Mountain football power. And it's something really special and historic because of what Andrews is doing.
Yeah, there's no question that Hugh Hamilton Stadium in Andrews is going to be the place to be. It's probably going to be the biggest night they've had in that town since maybe when they called Eric Rudolph. And I know that's a little off color, but that's a big time game coming up this Friday night. All right, well, let's go ahead and shift our focus now to the 2A. And look at the first with the 2A rankings. There you see them right there. Number 1, Burns, just dominant Friday night against their 42-0 victory over Shelby. Monroe moves up to number 2. East Surrey right there, number 3. East Duplin, Reidsville, Chase, Maiden, Wallace Rose Hill, Princeton, Clinton. And I think you're going to see a trend right here as we start to look into some of the big matchups here this week with some of those same teams. And we'll start off first as soon as the graphic comes up here with the 2A East. And I know Alex and Grice, we got a lot to talk about. Let's look at their number 8 Cummings going over to take on number 1 Princeton. You know, this passing attack of Janias Sharp, Kavari Hightower, and Jonathan Paylor almost brings me back to the glory days of, you know, the Donnie Davis and Maurice Mebane and Ernest Tennant and Brandon Tate days. There's a lot going on in that Cummings team. I don't know if they've got enough to deal with that nasty backfield of Christian Paris and that Princeton team that is just so nasty running the ball. But I think that's going to be a very entertaining game. There you got Wallace Rose Hill at Nash Central. Big time year for Nash Central this year. No Javante Williams for Wallace Rose Hill. Hey, no problem. They just continue to get it done between their sophomores, Irving Brown and Corbin Carr. Those guys are just really getting it done on the ground. And then Hertford County at Whiteville. You know, Whiteville had that big victory last Friday night over Edenton Holmes. And look for JP Price, Coach JP Price's team to go on and get a big win or try to get another big win this week against Hertford. Although I do like this Hertford team. Kevon Rogers is a good-looking quarterback. I think that they are powerful enough to pull off an upset in this game. And then looking here at the bottom, I think this is the big game in the Eastern bracket this week. 2 of the Blue Bloods, 2 of the big powers in Eastern North Carolina football. With Clinton going down to Beulahville to take on East Duplin. Clinton has speed all over the field. You know, they are really good on defense this year. But as for East Duplin, you know, quarterback Zach Brown kind of gets the headlines, but you got Avery Gabby who's getting it done, running the ball just all over the place. They got some really tough guys in that Battle Holly system also that I really like how they get the ball, kind of get some of those tough yards. And Isaiah Hall and Cade Kennedy, you know, these are just some guys that get some of those unsung yards for that team. And we'll start with you, Alex. I'll let you talk about this Cummings team.
I liken this Cummings team in terms of what it's doing to what we see from Independence in the 4A West. Tradition renewed. You're seeing, as Chris pointed out so eloquently, harkening back to days past in the late 90s and the early 2000s when it was the norm for Cummings not even to try to schedule a basketball game before like December 15th. Because all the kids were winning football state championships. It was really neat to see. So we're seeing kind of the same thing that Independence is doing right now, tradition renewed with a very vigorous and potent passing offense. So that's going to put Cummings in a position to be competitive. As we've spoken about with Independence and we've seen all year, is it quite what the program has been yet? Okay, maybe a little ways to go, but still tradition renewed, and being able to embrace that spirit will give the Cavaliers a chance. No doubt about that. In the other games, I think we can jump straight down to the latest battle in Beulahville. I mean, my goodness, right there. I'll sum it up this way. I'll use some alliteration. Beulahville begins with the B. Clinton's coach, Bob Lewis, his name begins with the B. And then if you look at the East Duplin coaches over history, right now we have Battle Holly. That's a B. And before our battle, we had Brian Aldridge. That's a B. There is nothing B-level about a Clinton East Duplin game year after year after year. Beulahville will be rocking for this grade A showdown once again. The winner of this game, I put in the state final.
You may be very right. I don't doubt that. Again, I think those are 2 really good teams. Let's take a look here at the 2A Western bracket. I know Grice and Dale, you might have some insight on this, but looking there at the top side, you got number 8, Chase, undefeated, 12-0 going into Reidsville, football capital of North Carolina, 11-1. Reidsville's quarterback, a junior quarterback, by the way, Al Lee, leads Coach Jimmy Teague's team. He was 12 of 17, I think, last week for about 251 yards in their big victory over a really sneaky good Providence Grove team that I think is better than maybe some of the experts predicted. Chase, running back, I know that Grice, we've talked about him this year, Jalen Rutzel, he rushed for 333 yards and 4 touchdowns last week in their win over Robinson. Looking down, here's one of the most exciting games that I was really excited about this week. Number 13, Bunker Hill, 11-1, going over to take on Maiden at Tom Brown Stadium. By the way, Tom Brown also coached both Bunker Hill and Maiden in his illustrious career. Maiden won that game 36-33 back in October. Junior quarterback, Redrick Robinson and that whole cast of guys at Bunker Hill, they've just played some really exciting football team. Jason Willis had a great game last week in their victory over Community School of Davidson. And then for Maiden, I mean, that quarterback or that combo of Wesley Thompson and Chris Culliver, that's worth the price of admission just in that game alone. And then looking down at the bottom half of the bracket, we just talked a little bit about Salisbury a second ago, but Salisbury going on to Burns. Burns, they're really impressed with that 42-0 victory over Shelby. Salisbury, I do think has gotten a little bit better each week. And Coach Clayton Trivett, Salisbury Hornets, I do think that they're better. Are they a state championship contending team? I don't know. But Jamichael Wells, just give that young man the ball and let him run. And Grice, I'm going to let you go with it first.
I am. Sorry about that. Yep, I fixed that. I'm looking at that Chase and Reidsville matchup. Maybe I'm from 336. Maybe my mom went to Reidsville High, but I'm biased. I think that's going to be a great matchup. You look at Chase. You've already referenced, Rudisill there is kind of taking over. It looks like McCombs has been hurt this year. Another guy we talked about last year on the defensive side was Tavion Derismo, who had a great interception total. He's doing it on the receiver side on the offensive end this year with 705 yards receiving and 13 touchdowns. So they've got athletes all over the place. And Reidsville's been quiet. Again, their only loss this year was to Page. 4A Page, that is correct. Outside of that, they have run the table, absolutely just destroying everybody. Got a 2A year, no Shelby, as Burns, the new quote-unquote Shelby, new Cleveland County representative there. I still think Reidsville, I hold hope that I think that they're going to represent for the 336 and continue their championship pedigree. But, again, they've got to get over a talented Chase Trojan team here that I think is going to be a great matchup.
Dale, any thoughts here on the West?
Other than the Bunker Hill Maiden game, looks to be a real big ball game. Again, a rematch, as you mentioned, 36-33 earlier. Can a good team be beaten twice is the question here. I kind of think Maiden's got a lot of offense. I was really surprised as I looked down at the stats and just how dominant they are on the offensive side of the ball. And that UNC commit, he plays both sides of the ball and he plays it well. So I think this is a big game for Bunker Hill or they're going to have to play a big game to win this ball game because Maiden does look very good.
Yeah.
And I think that, that Burns Salisbury game, what defense, that kid that you guys had on who had a great game last weekend, I think he's going to have another big ball game in this ball game to be able to keep them in it.
And by the way, I messed up, guys. I forgot to mention that number 7. And I think this is the 2A game of the week in all of them. I really believe it is. Number 7, Monroe, 11-1, going on the road to David Diamond Stadium up there in Pilot Mountain to take on number 2 East Surrey, who's 12-0. Last year in the third round, these teams played to a 10-9 game that East Surrey prevailed in. Kamani Robinson and that whole crew from Monroe, they have just been really nasty on offense. And Grice, and I'll let you go on this one if you want to, but we know Folger Boas, he's that gunslinger of a left-handed quarterback. We've talked a lot about him, Mr. Football finalist. I think this has to be the best game in the 2A.
I mean, honestly, I was going in a little different direction because I thought we were all going to hone right on it, Guru. I was, that was one of those where I think this is, like you said, the best one around. I think that, we know about this when, again, Chase and Reedsville kind of was going on, with another aim. But, I mean, we talk about East Surrey. It's been great last 2 years. You talk about the matchup last year. Like you said, Kamani Robinson, again, Nate Crosby Jr. has been absolutely killing it at running back this year. I mean, they've got, bringing one of the most talented teams that East Surrey has seen since that matchup. And I would argue that Monroe's better. I mean, you look at some of the games, the dominant win over Marvin Ridge, Sun Valley this year. They've been, I would argue, Union County's second best team this year. And I think they get a great chance to show that against an East Surrey team that we've gushed over for years now. I mean, Folger Boaz has had a phenomenal year. He's had a phenomenal career even. He's got to make sure they get over this again with another team bringing some high-quality talent, one of Monroe's best teams in a little while up there.
Yeah, I think the road's going to go through Burns and Monroe. I think those are the teams are going to have to get through those two teams because I think those two are going to ultimately meet.
You got something to say about it?
Well, yeah, no question about that. There's a couple of teams that's got a few things to say about it.
I don't disagree with either of you on that. Grice, you've coached more recently than I have. It's been 10, 12 years since I've carried a whistle. Last year, third-round game, that was a very emotional back-and-forth 10-9 victory for East Surrey. As a coaching staff for Monroe, the players, there's got to be some familiarity with that game. And the guys that were on that field, how does that carry over into a year later, matching it up again, same round?
I mean, I think you love it. I mean, a lot of times if I'm that team that, went through an absolute war with another team and I get the chance to go get back. I mean, this is one of those weeks at practice where I ain't got to tell you to run through the line. I don't have to tell you to get on the ball. I don't got to tell you to run that extra lap of conditioning because that's necessary because you felt 1 point short and that 1 point could have been a lot of different things. So all of the little things that you may not have wanted to do when you were playing against insert, easy victory here, you're going to do all of that and more against a team like East Surrey. But you also know that they're doing the same thing on the other end because like we've talked about, the winner of this game, I mean, I would think is going to be in a very good position. Monroe does it, they show it doesn't matter if I'm in the mountains or I'm in Union County, I can go beat you. East Surrey does it, they show it doesn't matter who we played early on. Our team is state championship ready. So, again, it's going to be one of those weeks where I feel like the coaching part is easy from the context of the week-to-week, daily practice schedule. You're locked in, you're ready to go. Now it's time to show it on Friday.
Yeah.
So one point that just popped into my head, and I know this was true in the 1A as well. We're really, if we look at previous playoffs, we're really in the second round. Look at those records of the teams that are going against each other. It's unreal. The matchups. We're seeing a Mallard Creek and Huff playing last week. I know it's a different classification, but here we are seeing Burns and Salisbury having to go against each other. East Surrey and Monroe here in the still early in the playoffs. What a two-way matchups.
Agreed. And just kind of put a bow on that East Surrey Monroe game. Talk about two great names that hit going face-to-face in the coaching ranks. Obviously, Johnny Sal, we know about him, one of the greatest men ever, in my opinion. I still think they should name the whole athletic complex, the Johnny Sal Athletic Complex at that school for everything he's done in all sports, not just football, basketball, even track. And then Trent Lohman, son of a legend and, Shrine Bowl quarterback himself at Bandy's High School back in the 90s, two great names going against each other in the coaching fraternity. So look forward to that one. I think we're going to bring some, and you're right, Alex, I don't think there's anything Johnny doesn't do at Monroe. In fact, he's an assistant principal as well. So, I mean, he is Mr. Monroe High School.
Right. Maybe Tiddlywinks.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think of how many people Johnny Sal has mentored and mean a lot to them in that family. And I know now we're going to go to the 3A. We're going to bring on Coach Sam Griner. I think Cam's going to come on the screen to talk some football with us as well. But let's take a look at these 3A rankings. Got some shakeups after Friday night's games. You see them right there. Number 1, South Kings Mountain, South Point. Huge victory over Greensboro Dudley. They move up a spot, 71st right there. Northern Nash, East Lincoln Crest, Ledford, West Charlotte, Eastern Alamance, North Brunswick. Man, you could just make another top 10 of the teams that didn't make it. Just talking about some really good teams that are left in the 3A ranks. Terry Sanford, Eastern Alamance, and the bunch. Let's take a look at this week's games. And Alex, we'll start with the East. Southern Durham, they're 8-4. They've been kind of hot and cold at different times of the year, but they're starting to get it going at the right time. Going on and taking the top team, Northern Nash, who has just been steady, good all season long. Triton right there. This is 26 and a 20 seed. Triton at Jacksonville. Of course, Jacksonville had that big victory over Havelock last week. I do still contend that Jacksonville comes from the toughest conference in the state of North Carolina in regards to 3A. just a true 3A conference, 28 seed to the 20. And then North Brunswick, had that big 20-point victory over Lee County Friday night at Fayetteville 71st. And then looking at the bottom half, Terry Sanford 10-2, who won on a Hail Mary, one of the greatest plays I'd seen, Hail Mary the last seconds of the game to beat Scotland County on Saturday. And then Eastern Alamance, who won in double overtime over Burlington Williams on Friday. Alex, let's look into this 3A bracket, and I'll also come to you, Grice, as well. What do we see?
Well, the first thing I'll say is Terry Sanford's dramatic win last week. You have to wonder, could that be an omen for the Bulldogs going forward? And I say that with respect to, what was it, back in the late 80s or right in the early 90s when Terry Sanford lost that state final to Greensboro Page on a last play of the game deal when Page had to score to win that championship. I forgot exactly what year it was, but same type of dynamic right there. Could the tables be turning for Terry Sanford? And that type of a magical play could fuel quite a run there. Eastern Alamance, with all due respect to Chris's reference to Jacksonville's conference, I think Eastern Alamance would put forth an argument about its league's competitiveness as well at the 3A level. Eastern Alamance having to go through the likes of Western Alamance and Burlington Williams over the last couple weeks to put itself in this position, coming from a very competitive conference, just like Jacksonville did as well. Southern Durham, again, hot and cold. Southern Durham with that big win over Havelock earlier this year, just like Jacksonville did. So we always know that the Spartans will be in position to be competitive. Have shown that they can get it done when it matters, and the ability to step up defensively with edge rushers like Jabron Harvey to put them in a position to be competitive. So Darius Robinson, some way, somehow, year in and year out, comes up with something to put Southern Durham in the mix for a big regular season win like they did at Havelock, and to be in this third round opportunity to go to Northern Nash. So you just see a lot of balance right here with hot and cold being hot at the right time, a big dramatic play, teams that just keep rolling. It really could be one of the more exciting regional Final Eights in the state in terms of the games themselves and how schools match up.
I agree. And the one team that has not been hot or cold all year that's just kind of been very steady is Coach Andrew Ferris's Northern Nash team. They got that they've just looked really good all year long. I know they've rested some guys in the first couple of weeks of the playoffs, and I think that they're really poised, but it's not going to be an easy task to get by Coach Darius Robinson's Southern Durham Spartan team. But let's take a look at the West. There you see right there, West Charlotte 7-5 going on to take on number 1 Kings Mountain. Ledford 11-1. That's a 12 seed, and number 4 East Lincoln, who's undefeated. Crest right there at 14, taking on South Point, who's 11-1. And then Eastern Guilford right there at the bottom, heading up the mountain to go to West Henderson. I think there's a lot of compelling teams in here. I think that there's 3 bona fide state championship contenders who I think are just a little bit above the rest. But Grice, I'm going to let you go take first dibs at it, and then we'll just kind of go around the room and kind of talk about these games because there's a lot of big ones here in the 3A West.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think, again, I'll start with Crest at South Point was the Grice's Right game of the week earlier in the year. And of course, we know South Point won that 35-13. I think a couple things to note here that'll be interesting is that, one, the way that South Point played, fantastic receiver Javarius Green. I mean, watching that game, he literally had a corner in front of him and a safety over top, bracketing him with 2 people, and really led to, his ineffectiveness. And, Octavius Huskies 15 of 31 for 204 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception performance, as in the spirit of Dale with a QB rating of 67, which is far off from some of the great games he's had this year. And then on the offensive side, you had the combo of Cam Medlock and Patrick Lee, who we just highlighted, of course, as a Grice's gym this week, given that 1-2 punch that we know about the South Point offense. So I think it's going to be a great game. Something that will be interesting to note is that to see if South Point will still employ that same tactic against Javarius Green. If I'm them, you've got to do it. I think he is that key, and you got to make someone else and make Husky find someone else to beat him. Thought they employed a great strategy. Can Crest do something different to get their guy the ball?
So, Bryce, you mentioned his QBR for the game, and for the season, he's 122. But in that game, South Point had 8 tackles for loss. They had 4 sacks. They had 20 QB hurries, and they had 9 what Max Preps is listed as pass defense. So it doesn't say PBU, but I'm assuming that those are not just PBUs, but good defense that keeps the ball from getting there. The big thing with South Point, and I got to watch them play Kings Mountain, is they have a very, very good, solid defense. And I think I mentioned before, uh, they actually have more tackles for loss than does Kings Mountain as a team. So, the two big things about, or the big thing about South Point, of course, is they're a run team. And you featured the quarterback, the young freshman. The kid is phenomenal, but there's a great running back that has like 1,500 yards. Uh, Natavius Husky, that's his name, right? The quarterback.
Yep.
He has over 3,600 yards total offense.
Phenomenal.
If you count his passing and his running, so he's a threat on both sides. That Crest has got to find a way to get active. Am I covering my mic? I'm sorry, guys.
No, we got you. We got you just
Oh,
fine,
you're
Dale. That's excellent insight.
Lace is just hating.
Yeah. Hey, moving on. Cam, we're gonna give you a shot at this. That West Charlotte at Kings Mountain game, I think, is a big one. And Sam, I want to get some insight from you as well. So hold tight on there, Coach. But Cam, give us what you got.
This game is very intriguing to me, and you look at this game, seeing Kings Mountain at 12-0, dominating all year, and West Charlotte 7-5, and if you don't know these teams well, you'd think, man, this is just going to be a dominant one-sided game. But I mean, West Charlotte all year long has played in one of the tougher 4A conferences, if not the toughest 4A conference. Having Chambers, Huff, and Mallard Creek in that conference. So I mean, they're battle tested, and their first 2 playoff games, I mean, they just absolutely dominated. So I think it'll be a closer game than some might expect, actually.
Hey, Sam, a year ago, I was with you on that field over at Waddell when you guys hosted Kings Mountain, then first round of the playoffs or second round of the playoffs. And that was a tough game for you guys. I thought that Kings Mountain was just really good on the defensive front. They did some things to really capitalize, and they had a great game plan. Fast forward a year later, you're a different team, they're a different team, but yet you still know Coach Lloyd, you know the system, you know what they're going to do. How does playing them a year later help you? And without, giving them any bulletin board material, just tell us some of the things that you've identified on film that you think make this Kings Mountain team really good.
Well, definitely last year I gave them some, I didn't know they watched their show, but obviously they do. That I said that we didn't have to play, a great game. We just had to play a good game and we could win last year. Well, the day after we made that comments, we lost 3 of our best players in an altercation, and that's no excuse. Here's the thing about Kings Mountain. They are a program, all right? West Charlotte, we are not a program yet. We are becoming a program. Does not mean we can't go and compete in this game and win this game. But we have to do it, and we have to take it from Kings Mountain. Kings Mountain has been there, done that. They've been dominant for years. They've established their program. They're going to have their fans out there. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be a great environment. And we're just little old West Charlotte. Nobody's picking us to win this game. But I like our bunch. I think we're gritty. I think we're ready for this opportunity. And I'm excited to play this game. I've never been so excited to play in a game in a long time. And this is one of those ones you really get geared up for.
I thought I might jump in on this since I've had an opportunity to see both, and I've seen Sam's team a number of times this year. Some differences from last year is that West Charlotte has, I think they're maybe a little more balanced both sides of the ball. They have a better offense than they did last year. The defense is really going to have to step up, as I know Sam has seen. Kings Mountain is deadly with the run and the pass. They can hit you with both aspects of the ball game. Yes, Sam, your boys can take it. It's a great. The one thing I will say, any West Charlotte fans out there, you want a great environment for football. Cleveland County has it. and Kings Mountain is a fantastic place to go watch a football game. You should go support your team because I can guarantee you that other side is going to be loaded with fans. So go give some support. Make this a great ball game.
Wow. I couldn't have said that better myself, Dale, in terms of just the phenomenal atmosphere that Kings Mountain brings on. But hey, we're going to go talk about some private school playoffs. But before we break down this week's private school championship games, we want to let Chelsea get on here. She had a chance to sit down with Cannon's football star, Will Jones. You know, Cannon lost to Raven Gap last week, but Chelsea had a great interview with him. So let's take a look at what this young lady's doing this week with Will Jones.
This week, I'm interviewing class of 2024 running back Will Jones from Cannon High School. So, Will, you guys finished this past season 8-3, and I kind of want you to reflect and tell us what you're proud of with this record. You know, talk about the wins, the losses, and everything in between.
I thought it was a really good season. As you said, we finished 8-3, and we won a conference championship this year, and that's Coach Bolton's second conference championship in the past 3 years that he's been with us. And I think everyone did a really good job just staying focused and motivated throughout the whole season, throughout the hardships and whatnot. We had a lot of new people and young people, and they did a great job, like sticking to their role, making the team better, whether it's in practice, being loud in the games, or matter of fact, even starting as first-year people. So I thought it was a really good job from the team.
Absolutely. And Will, this being your junior year, it's kind of been like a breakout year for you. You know, tell us about your growth that you've seen within yourself.
Really for me, the biggest thing I've seen is just compared from last year to this year is my vision and my burst on the field. I mean, you can see it on film, but I feel like I did a really good job setting up my blocks for my linemen to make it easier on them, while also making it easier on me by setting up the defender just to get to the hole and then make it one-on-one with the safety, getting to the second level.
Absolutely. And Will, this being your junior year has been a big year for your recruiting. You've got some offers, some visits. Kind of tell us about that process.
The process, it's a little slow, but I'm doing my best to put my film out there, reach out to the coaches, try to build the connections, and also talk to my coach, Coach Bolton, about what to do, how to send stuff to the coaches, what's a good time for them. So hopefully, as their season wraps up, as it's coming to an end for their season, that they can start reaching out to the class of 2024s, and I can start some conversations going with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who don't know the Cannon football program, kind of tell us about what the culture you guys have there between, you know, your coaches, your teammates, and really the bonds you have.
Well, like I think I mentioned earlier, Coach Bolton came here 3 years ago, and he established a really good culture, and everyone just bought into it immediately. And that's been a huge factor. And whether it's a team dinner or we're in practice or in a game, everyone's always together having fun, and it's really amazing to see. And like I said, everyone's bought in and staying focused and motivated while also having fun, and that's like the biggest part, and it's just extremely cool to watch.
Absolutely. And Will, I saw you mentioned on your Twitter that now that the season's over, you're already working on your off-season grind. Kind of tell us about how you're, you know, working, spending your off-season, preparing for next year.
With this off season, like I said, I'm gonna reach out to coaches and looking to pick up my second offer and hopefully a couple more after I just received Columbia, I think about a month ago. But just really focus on get back in the weight room, get my speed and agility even better with my footwork. And last year my spring sport was playing lacrosse, and we ended up winning the state championship. But this year I think I'm gonna do track. I feel like it's a good complement to my football training, and just get ready for the summer.
That's awesome. I didn't know you did lacrosse, you know, in state championship. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Finally, looking back at this junior year for football, what's one goal that you really accomplished, and how did you get there?
Like I said, I think a team goal was the conference championship, and Obviously, the state championship, which we fell short on, but the conference championship was huge. And I mean, the look on everyone's faces was amazing after after that hard week of practice, we kind of knew what we were going to do when we got in there Friday against Metro Carolina. But for the team goal, definitely conference championship. But individually, I'd probably say hitting 2,000 all-purpose yards again. I fell short of how many yards I had last year, but I did pretty good. I ended up with I think just over 2,000 with 33 touchdowns, so I'm pretty pleased with that. But that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Both are great goals to end off of. Well, Will, thank you so much for hopping on, and I can't wait to see your growth this off season.
That's good. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, let's talk some NCISAA football. Hey, we're going to talk about Division II first, and we'll come back here in just a minute to talk about Division I. But Alex, we got a big game, Division II state championship taking place up in Asheville. Covenant Day, 8-3, going up to Asheville School, 7-3. How big a deal is this for this big D2 championship?
Very, very big deal for several reasons. First off, like so many playoff games we've discussed this evening, this is a rematch. These teams met earlier this season, Asheville School having a big 49-24 win. I think we all can agree that rematch games at this point certainly do not lend themselves to being decided by as wide margin of outcomes, and I think this will be the same in this case. But at the same time, I think the real beauty in all of this is, can you imagine how special it must be to watch a football game in the setting of the North Carolina mountains with a championship on the line? The Asheville School Stadium built right into the base of the mountains with the beautiful side and the beautiful view befitting a championship and a rematch of teams that have earned their ways there this year. If you look at the schedules of both of these teams, and also this is just a compliment to the visionary leadership of NCISAA coaches over the last decade or so in realigning to Division I and Division II, realizing that we were dealing in some cases with apples and oranges, to create appropriate competitive parity aligned with school sizes and competitive opportunities and what programs we're doing and able to do. So just all of those things coming together, the rematch, the setting, and fostering greater competitive balance among comparable schools make for a great Division II championship in the mountains.
All right, great analysis with that, Alex. Hey, now before we go to the D1 championships, we want to go to Sam's setup, to Sam's video with Liam Sherman of Community School of Davidson for this week's Frontline Warrior.
Another Frontline Warrior edition playoff, week 2. We got Liam Sherman, a.k.a. the Shermanator. I'm so excited to know, where did you get this name, the Shermanator?
My freshman year, all the seniors, well, my first practice freshman year, I was just destroying kids as a freshman, and all my older classmates just gave me that nickname, and my coach just kept calling me that till senior year. So
I love it, the Shermanator. Like, I think you have one of the best high school football coaches around in TJ Albert. I think he does a phenomenal job. It's very unique. A lot of times we don't get frontline warriors that throw the ball 75% of the time of the game, but you were planting guys, and you guys were in this football game mainly because of you. You had a tough loss to Bunker Hill this past Friday, but this entire, I say the last 3 or 4 games, you have dominated. Watched your film, planting people, even playing a little bit of nose guard. What do you think about playing defense as well?
I love playing defense. I wish TJ would give me more time on defense, but he wants me to be more fresh on offense than D. So
he's an offensive-minded guy. Of course he is. Now, he's got a little something for you. He says, you know, you're a really big-time practice player, but you missed one practice a couple of year ago for a unique situation. Did you go to a concert? What concert did you go to? Huh?
This is embarrassing, but I went to go see Billie Eilish in Las Vegas with a couple of friends.
That's what I'm talking about. He told me about it. That's pretty crazy. Now, You know, you're a unique guy. Your dad, I heard he was on the Apollo. Did he win at an Apollo?
Yeah, I think he won it 2 times.
Are you serious? What does he do? He can sing. He's a comedian. What does he do?
He used to sing back in the 90s. He sang like a lot of gospel, and he like sang backup with like Stevie Wonder, just like all those big guys back in the 90s.
You were just built for this, brother. You were built for this stage. That's what I'm talking about. The Shermanator is the real deal. And I'll tell you what, I love having you on the show. Appreciate you. You are a frontline warrior, a.k.a. the Shermanator. And looking forward. If you want to be on the next Frontline Warrior, guys, please contact me, Coach Sam Griner, at Twitter, Coach Sam Griner, at Instagram, Coach Sam Griner, or you can hit up at Charlotte Preps on Twitter, on IG or Instagram, or you can hit me up on Coach Sam Griner on Twitter or Instagram. Appreciate you. Looking for the next Frontline Warrior edition.
The Shermanator. I love it. Great job, Coach Sam Griner. I love that Bass Pro Shop hat as well. Hey, we got one big game to talk about, the state championship game for the Division I NCISAA finals. Christian 10-2 playing Providence Day, 11-1. Coach Chad Greer's Providence Day, Coach Jason Eastep, 2 big-time heavyweights in the private school ranks going at it. Cam, what do we see in this game?
You know, I'll keep this short and sweet. You know, I think Jaden Davis and Providence Day, you know, that team's really tough. I think they'll win. You know, they played a close game with Christian that Christian won earlier in the year, but they had Christian dead to rights in that game. We're up 20+, and Christian made a comeback. You know, I think Dale mentioned one time, you know, if these teams played, you know, 10 times, Providence Day will probably win 8 of them. So I think Providence Day will be too tough.
Have we not watched these?
I just want to say one comment.
Games in the past, no. Let's be very clear here. I'm going to state it and be very clear. Providence Day has to get over this Christian hump. They have to consistently get over this Christian hump. They've got a lot of things they want to do nationally, and we know that Coach Chad Greer is going to take them there. But I don't want to hear this, you know, this was blah, blah, blah. No, they haven't. Hey, the name last year or the name COVID year was Henry Rutledge. Micah Gilbert in his first game, 11 receptions, 3 touchdowns was the surprise here. I talked about Christian before playing Raven Gap, having to get over that hump to get here. My biggest thing I said was Kyron Jones needs to touch the ball more. He got it 25 times versus Raven Gap. That was the difference in losing in the regular season and winning in the postseason. Going back to look at this great matchup, again, yes, Providence Day was up twice with big leads. Christian was doing what Christian does. Get the ball to Kyron Jones, look for Ryan Henley, and young Cameron Eastep, found a guy in Micah Gilbert that could make big-time plays. You didn't see anything different from Providence Day. Jaden Davis was phenomenal per usual, 400+ yards. You saw the traditional names of Holler, Peel, Davis, Goodwin. Like, you see the traditional names there, but they just could not get it done when it needed to be done. They're going to need to get over this hump, and we can say what we want, but Christian has been owning Providence Day in the last few years. Providence Day needs this win to show that we're ready to take that next step. I said it during the game of the week before, and they didn't do it. They got to have it now where it matters.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. I mean, everybody on this panel, pretty much, not you, Bryce, necessarily, picked Raven Gap to beat Christian. I was like, I don't think Christian's losing that game. And we're like,
oh, disrespect Jason. You step out here. This is crazy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you got the disrespect. Christian has been dominant in this, you know, state finals in the Division I the last 10 years. I mean, they've been dominant. To be the champ, you got to beat the champion. You got to beat them again. And I love Chad Gray. He's one of my favorite coaches in the whole world.
He's amazing.
I think he wants this game, but this Christian's not going to hand you this game. You're going to have to go snatch it from him. I mean, it's going to have to be straight Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, and then you're going to have to snatch their heart out. And just that's the only way. That's the only way.
Yeah, so no doubt. And, you know, earlier we've had this thing about emotional and playing with emotion. And in the first game when they played, there were 2 times that Christian got down by 20 points. And I think one of the huge reasons that Providence Day lost was each time that they got up, they didn't seem to have the play. And this is with the players, did not seem to have that killer mentality to put it away. And the Christian players had the exact opposite mentality. They had obviously talent on the field.
They've been there.
And they never quit, and they made it happen. And then what happened? They won the ball game at the end. Is Providence Day going to be able to go in and take this and win their second state championship? Not if they approach this game like they did the first time around. They're going to have to go in fully committed, and like Sam said, they're going to have to reach in and take it. And then they got not just take it, they got to hold it. They got up 20-0 in the first quarter, and then they had it. And what did they do? They laid it down and let Christian come back and get it. Then they grabbed it again, and what happened? They laid it back down. They never secured it. So, Bryce, I agree with you 100%. There's a bit of a hump. You've got to continue. You got to consistently beat the boys down the street, and until they can do that, they're not really going to be the team. So we'll see what happens Friday night. Great environment, I expect.
All right, gentlemen, y'all bring it every week. This is why this is the best high school football show in the state of North Carolina, because of men like you. We appreciate that analysis of the D1 state championship game. But hey, I know a lot of people have been waiting for these 4A rankings to talk about this week's program 4A games. So, yep, 4A Fight Club. Let's look at it. Right there is the top 10. East Forsyth holding strong. But, hey, look right there. Independence moves up a spot. Independence number 2. New Bern down to number 3. Huff, 4. Grimsley, Weddington, Butler, Millbrook, AC Reynolds, and Wake Forest round out your top 10. And there's some incredible football teams that did not even make it. 12-0 Hillside, and right there on the outside looking in. That just goes to show how strong this 4A cast is of characters. Let's look at the East. Alex, this is your neck of the woods. We'll go to you for some of these games. Pine Forest out there in Fayetteville. My good friend Bill Chichoka, 10-2, taking on Ray Harrison's Hillside team. They're 12-0. Southern Alamance, 9-3. Coach Fitz going over to Millbrook, 11-1. Incredible story with Millbrook. You know, they got an interim coach. Coach resigned beginning of the year. You know, a lot of different things. Clarence Inscore retires after 30 years, 20 years. And then Millbrook just has this dominant resurgence this half of the year. Big time story there. Rollsville, 9-3. You remember the turmoil that started the season with them. Coach Sam McCow, bring in Coach Richard Shuping. They've done nothing but get better each week. They had that first week loss to East Forsyth, and then they've kind of slowly got better and better each week. Had the big victory over Cleveland last week. Going to take on Wake Forest. The Wake Forest team, by the way, back in September or October, won that game against Rollsville 24-20. Every game between Rollsville and Wake Forest here lately have been barn burners that went down to the final seconds. I think this week's game will probably be the same. And then there you see the bottom half, Jordan, who's had 2 unbelievable wins in the last 2 weeks. You call them the cardiac team. Going down to New Bern to take on the Bears. Alex Bass, I know that the East is your neck of the woods. So what do we see here?
What has been arguably some of the quietest success stories of this year is quiet no more. Hillside, to be 12-0 as quietly as they've done it on the state level, I mean, what have we really heard about Hillside since that most unfortunate shortened game at Dudley? They've just gone on and taken care of business week after week after week. Jamil Williams, their wonderful tailback, just passed 2,000 yards on the season last week. Just flying under the radar, getting the job done. That Southern Alamance team lost the conference championship on the last night of the season to Hillside. That's a good football team. Once again, just these teams, these are your all under the radar teams. They've just gotten better, work hard, taking care of business, and you see the records. They've beaten up each other. We've seen that. Millbrook, second straight year winning a conference championship, second straight year with a win over Wake Forest. Just taking care of business, and fine. No Wesley Grimes, fine. We go to Nathan Leacock. People want to take Nathan Leacock out of the equation. Fine. We go to Ty Broughton. Just flying under the radar, taking care of business, ready to step up when the opportunity presents itself. Rollsville, we all know the story there. They had the big win over Millbrook, but Wake Forest got him again. Rolesville has come around to play well at the right time of the year. Obviously, they had that hard loss to East Forsyth, but in this position, playing well at this time of the year. Noah Rogers always a threat. Wake Forest is Wake Forest with the two tough losses to Cardinal Gibbons and to Millbrook, but in a position to have another playoff opportunity at home versus Rolesville. And we all know Wake Forest used to be Wake Forest Rolesville. I do want to mention very quickly this Jordan team, these are underclassmen. Their quarterback, Addison Vondi, that's a junior. They have a 2,000-yard rusher, Amarian Blue. He's a sophomore. Their leading receiver, Amaris McMiller, he's a sophomore. So we're seeing, once again, the development of this young talent that has peaked at the right time for Jordan. Formidable challenge going down to New Bern. New Bern was in this same situation where Jordan was about 3 years ago. Those were freshmen and sophomores. The maturation process has completed and come to fruition. New Bern can seize the opportunity. New Bern doesn't have to go through Nick Drew's defense this year, as was the case 3 years ago. The opportunity is there. It's there. So everything that's been quiet about all these teams all year long, just taking care of business, flying under the radar, everyone knows now this is going to be an exciting quartet of games right here.
Hey, one quick question, Alex. Before you do so, I'm glad you mentioned Jordan. That's Coach Justin Allred, the longtime offensive coordinator down at Greenville Rose, led them to a couple state championship games. He has done an amazing job really taking over that program and building it from the ground up after Anthony Barber retired. Hey, one quick question for you before we go to the West, Alex, though. History tells us that Fayetteville teams often have a history of coming up to Raleigh and kind of putting a kink in the Eastern playoffs. We've seen it year after year with some Bird teams, some Terry Sanford teams. Does this Pine Forest team show you anything that you think they can come up and kind of repeat history, like Southview and some of the others?
My answer to that question is nothing against Pine Forest and more a comment about what Hillside has done. I think we've seen the tables turn a little bit with that particular trend. From the late 90s, early 2000s. You go back to 2010 playoff game when Douglas Byrd came up to Cardinal Gibbons and got stopped by the Crusaders. I think that was the beginning of the turning of that tide in a sense. That's not a knock on Pine Forest. That's a compliment to what Hillside has done and the prowess of the Hornets offense and where Hillside is able to go. It'll be a good game, but I think the tide has turned in that regard in terms of it being a standard.
All right. Thanks for the insight, Sir Alex Bass on Eastern North Carolina. Nobody covers the state better in the East. We're going to move now to the West. I know we got a lot of people here in the Queen City that are anxious to talk about some of these big-time games, and I know some of the guys over here on the left side of the screen are itching to get after it. So there you see it right there. Number 8, Independence, although I got them the number 2 team in the state, 11-1, going up to Jameson Stadium to take on number 1 Greensboro Grimsley. Game we've talked about earlier, number 5 Huff traveling up to East Forsyth. Remember, Huff won that game in the playoffs. It was a much closer game than that score, but that was a 26-14 game last year against a really young East team. Now East has kind of flipped the script and is a whole lot more of a veteran squad. So I'm going to let you guys dig into that here momentarily. Number 14, Northwest Guilford. They went up on the mountain and beat a really scrappy Watauga team last week. Now they get to come down to Weddington and take on them. And then finally, Butler, the 15 seed, 10-2, going up the mountain to Asheville to take on AC Reynolds. Of course, we know the Rockets knocked off Chambers last week, 17-16. I don't know who wants to go first. Flip a coin. Dale, you're on the top. I'm just going to go down the line, and you go first.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm looking at that very first game, Independence at Grimsley. I'm a big DJ fan. I'm a kind of an Independence fan after what I've seen them do. They're really on fire right now. And I think this is a team that's good on both sides of the ball. Grimsley kind of showed me something beating up on Catholic. I did not think that they would be able to take care of Catholic in that manner. So this is a bit of a tough ball game for Independence, but I think Independence is a better team than they were back a few weeks ago, even. I think that this is a team that's come together and playing great football. And I just want to remind everybody, I penciled them in all the way to the state championship week 1. So let's see how that goes.
Anybody else got any thoughts on this Indy team?
I do.
Come on, Grice.
Yeah, I believe Independence is the best team left out of the Charlotte area. I don't think they have the suffocating defense like Mallet Creek or Chambers or Huff, but I think their offensive balance is so much better than those other 3 programs. And they got the quarterback. And something that a lot of people overlook is 6 of the guys on that independent staff got state championship rings
Right.
from other high schools, from Mallet Creek, from Victory Christian. Those guys have been together a lot or a long time, and I think that makes a huge difference this time of year. So Independence is my sleeper. I think right now, at this point in the year, they're the best team in the Charlotte area. Now, can they go up to Grimsley? It's another step in their maturation process, but I give them as good a chance of coming out of the West as anybody on this list.
All right, I'll say something. I think the difference in Independence team now, they've been good all year long. Okay, but now they believe. They believe. I think when they beat Butler, there was a switch that happened and says, you know what? Why not us? Okay. Now, I don't believe, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I've been talking to DJ all year long. I think he's done a phenomenal job of building this program back up. He was the right coach Independence needed, and he's doing a great job. I still think Huff is the best Charlotte team left. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody. They got a little bit more emotion to play with now after losing one of their own in Virginia. I think they have something else that they maybe needed to push themselves in the playoffs, but by far their defense is extremely dominant. We're going to see how good they are because they're going against probably the best team in East Forsyth. So if they're able to win that game, they still would be the favorites. But I still think Independence, the only difference is now they've always been good all year long. I've been saying the most balanced offensive team I've seen the entire year, and we faced 5 of these good ones, okay? And they just believe now. They got that monkey off the back and said, we beat Butler, we won the conference basically, and so they're moving on. And I just think that they can beat Grimsley. That is a tough matchup, though. They match up really well with Independence. I think Independence wanted to pay Catholic to get that loss off of them and get that back, but now they got to go through Grimsley, and then they got a tough road. So we'll see.
I'll step in here. I think Independence is a very good team. Justin Little's very impressive, but that Grimsley team's no slouch. I actually had Catholic beating Grimsley, but anytime Catholic, they scored, went for 2, cut that game to a 6-point game, and then Grimsley just marched down the field in like 4 plays. So Grimsley can score in bunches. They put up a lot of numbers quickly, but I think I picked Independence to win. I think it'll be a close game, and all games this late in the playoffs should be close, ideally.
All right, gentlemen. Hey, let's talk about the other big game. We looked at the video earlier in the show with Coach Matt Jenkins. We've talked a little bit about this game. Huff, 10-2, heading up to Cartersville to take on Coach Todd Willard's East Forsyth team. Obviously, we've got Mr. Football candidates in this game. We've got 2 phenomenal defenses, 2 big-time defensive coordinators going head-to-head. Again, 2 teams that went at it in the 3rd round of last year's playoffs as well. I think East Forsyth is now the more seasoned and veteran squad. But yet, let's not take anything away from Coach Jenkins and Coach Chachi Sullivan and all those guys at Huff. That's a really, really, really good football team as well. We're just going to go down the list, and we'll start with this game. And Dale, we're just going to come right back to you and work our way down in your thoughts of this game.
Sure. So, when our picks come out, whenever they're published, you'll see I picked Huff. I expect this to be like a 1-score game. I didn't really factor in the playing with emotion because of the tragedy that happened in Virginia. I just think that Huff's defense can hold East Forsyth down enough that Huff's offense will be able to score enough to win this game. I really I don't know. It's one of those that I've got a feeling, but this is going to be a very, very tall, tough task for Huff. It ain't going to be as easy as some might think because East Forsyth are really good ball team. I know that.
Jalen Alexander Rayner is having a season with the magnitude of impact comparable to that of Chris Leak in his sophomore year at Independence. Mind you, I did not say that Jalen Alexander Rayner is the kind of player Chris Leak was. I'm not going down that comparative road. What I said was the impact, the magnitude of impact he is having for his particular team and what it is looking to accomplish is comparable to what Chris Leak did as a 10th grader for that first independent state championship team in 2000. East Forsyth wins this one, not necessarily going away, but comfortably enough to continue on its journey to a state championship, and Jalen Alexander Rayner continuing on his journey to Mr. Football. Thank you.
I think
this one's going to be an
one of the
interesting
things
game here. I just think it's something that you've got to look at between these two teams of just, Huff, having played, some tough competition. East Forsyth really, and I think this matters, they haven't played anybody that wasn't scared of them yet. And I think that's important to note whenever you look at this. And, it's one of those situations where, Jalen Alexander Rayner is having a phenomenal season. You've got the phenomenal defense led by defensive coordinator Aaron Bill. You know that East Forsyth is going to come ready. The nest is going to be rocking up there in Kernersville. But again, it's Huff's just a team I think that goes up there that's not scared. And if they play mistake-free football, they're not turning the ball over. I think they're going to be extremely tough to beat. And ironically, it's one of those weird years where I thought last year Chachi Sullivan had the best defense I'd seen him have. This year, even though they're younger, maybe not as individually talented as they have been in the past, this one's shaping up to be one of the best for them as well. So, I think that's going to be one thing to notice. One thing to notice, too, as well as, Jalen Rayner being great getting the ball down the field. That defensive secondary is young. We talk about the freshman, Samari Matthews. They really haven't given up a lot of passing yards. I think that a long passing touchdown they gave up to Mallard Creek this past week, that'll be the matchup to see. Again, you talk about Jalen Rayner getting the ball down the field. Is he successful and is he able to do so against Huff's secondary? That's going to be the key. And also, you better get out of that pocket because Huff has some towers at 6'4" and 6'5" at defensive end that are going to be pretty tough to throw the ball over.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that, what you just said. I think the one weakness that East Forsyth might get exposed is the offensive line is not necessarily like world beaters, okay? And you're going against an extremely good defensive line. Once again, the only thing that could be an issue is like the young secondary. Are they going to be able to? So to defeat Huff, it's almost like you're going against like the Alabama-style defense. The way to beat them up is to play unsound football in a way where Rayner can actually literally break the pocket and create on his own. If he's able to do that, kind of like how Bubba did, where he broke that long touchdown, that was the only way that Chambers really hurt Huff on defense. If Rayner has that capability to escape the pocket and break down the defense like in an unsound way, it's not necessarily the play was called for him to do that. He's just able to make plays. That's how they defeat Huff. I don't know if they can do that. We will see.
We're talking about a Huff team, guys, that has only allowed double-digit scoring twice all season. And in one of those games, it wasn't even the defense that allowed 2 scores. It was their offense who threw 2 pick sixes. So, this Huff defense is tough. It's the toughest one East Forsyth has seen by a mile, in my opinion. Is East Forsyth's offense good? It's probably one of the 2 best offenses left in the playoffs. So it's an offense and defense battle. And, I'm looking forward to going up there and watching it.
One of the things that I've taken away from Huff's season is, especially against games against Mallard Creek, against Chambers, I think they knew that they could win the special teams battle in those games, and field goals were good enough for the most part. They could play field position. But I think against this East Forsyth team, Huff is going to have to score touchdowns instead of field goals. They still can play the field position game with the punting game, but I don't think they can settle for field goals against East Forsyth. They're going to have to score touchdowns. I don't see East Forsyth's defense being as tough as Mallard Creek or Chambers, but I do see their offense being a little bit better than those two schools, and thus Huff is not going to be able to just say, "Hey, we'll sit back, play field position, kick a field goal here and there, and that should be enough to hold us," because they weren't afraid of the passing games of Chambers and Malik Creek. But they're gonna have to score some points this week and not just settle for 3 points every time they cross the 35.
Great analysis from all of you. I mean, all of y'all brought your A game. That is pure money today. Again, that is the 4-5 matchup with Huff heading up to Kernersville for Easter Scythe. Now looking at this Northwest Guilford traveling down to Weddington game. Grice, I'm going to come to you for this one, and then I'll let you follow up as well. I know you've looked at this game. We've had some Grice's gems come from these two teams. What do you see from this matchup, Coach?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very good matchup. I mean, you look at with Northwest Guilford. I think we talked about the matchup between Tanner Ballou, Trent Cloud. I think has been one of the better QB receiver matchups you talk about from the 3-3-6. You look at just Northwest Guilford as a whole has played some tough teams. They've been there with East Forsyth early in the year, if I'm not mistaken. But one big thing too for them is that they're going to be able to run the football, and they're going to have to against a tough Weddington team that I think is pretty experienced on that defense. I think a lot of you talk about your seniors were there and kind of still have some of that state championship pedigree, in which we saw again a week that didn't have. A week that wasn't normal by any circumstances. Speaking, for us, I think some of our lack of, our inexperience in big games, hurt us a little bit. Really didn't affect Weddington, whether it was field position, whether it was dealing with a soccer game being played before the game. I think that state championship DNA for Weddington really works. And I mean, I think they're very deliberate in what they do. And I think that's going to be the part for Northwest Guilford. You look at a Griffin Reimer, the tight end for Weddington, big physical guy who can run, block, catch, is pretty decent speed. You got Zamil Patterson, a great receiver. And then even flipping it for that secondary from Weddington. I think that's going to be the matchup is that can Tanner Ballou get that ball out of his hand to his big-time receivers? And if he's able to do so, I think they might have a shot here. But that Weddington defense, I think, is pretty disciplined, and I think that they're going to have to do some special things in order to put up some big-time points against them.
One thing to look at in this game is Tanner Ballou going to be playing, because he went down in the first or second series against Watauga. They were up 6-0 at the end of the first quarter, had 21 put up on them in the second. But what impressed me the most is just this team's composure. They came back, scored 21, I think, themselves in the fourth quarter. So, the composure was really excellent. I think Weddington still has the advantage just talent-wise, but I think this could be a close game.
Okay, so yeah, by disciplined, I like to use the word technical. They're a highly technical team, both offensive and defensively. One of the things I've mentioned many times about a Weddington team, and it's just a repeat thing every season with them, is that it's hard. You might get a big play, but you don't typically see big plays break to touchdowns. And that's because of their technical prowess on the field. They know that the players know where they need to be. They are a very, very tough across both lines, especially that defensive line. Bryce knows that. I'm sure that he saw a good rush from them and good coverage by their secondary. So I think I'm in Weddington in this ball game. I wanted to kind of throw that out. That being Weddington is such a highly technical team in their play, they're a fun team to watch play because of that.
All right. Well, hey, appreciate that. Hey, we got one last game to talk about. Gary, I'm going to start with you. Butler Bulldogs, Coach Brian Hills and the squad, 10-2. They're heading up the mountain to take on AC Reynolds, coached by Shane Lofts. Again, the Rockets had that 17-16 victory over Chambers last week. Gary, starting with you, and then we'll go to Coach Grice. What do we see in this one?
I see a game of adjustments. If you notice, in most of Butler's big games this year, they've started out slow. They've adjusted and came on strong in the end. I just see a veteran coaching staff led by Brian Hales that knows how to adjust as the game moves along, and that's a that's a tough situation when you're dealing with kids where you practice a scheme or a defense or offense all week, and you see it's not working, and you can change midstream in the middle of a game, and the kids pick up on what the coaches want, and it leads to success later on. So with Butler, they're going on the road. It's going to be cold. I'm pretty sure the grass will be long. But if they can make it through halftime, then I like Butler's chances against AC Reynolds. Now, if AC jumps on them early, it might be a long night for Butler. But I think if Butler can, keep it fairly close at the half, then they have the type of staff that can make the adjustments for them to be successful in the second half.
Yeah, if it was grass, they would have it a little bit. They might put some more rubber pellets in the turf.
Okay, they are on turf. See, I didn't know they had turf now. So last time I was up there, we were playing in a cow pasture. So
no, I got you. No, you're good. I think the weather is always going to affect, the Charlotte teams if they can get over that. But once the juices get flowing, I think that, Butler can prevail in this game. And Butler in the past, might have to go back 10 years, had to go through AC Reynolds a couple of years. And I think it was a big Statue of Liberty play back in the day that won the game for them. And I would love to maybe revisit that. I would love for Butler to kind of, they always keep some of the old offense from back in the day. Hells does a good job of keeping that history. I would love to see a 2-point conversion type play off the Statue of Liberty maybe in the Arsenal. If AC Reynolds ain't watching the show, then maybe it'll work. But that'd be pretty cool. I would love to see Butler, be able to be victorious here. I think AC Reynolds is a very tough place to play, like you're saying. Anytime you're going up to the upper room in AC Reynolds, it's going to be a tough spot.
Brian Hill says, "Thank you, Sam."
Yeah, I know, right? Statue of Liberty. Did he really say something? That boy, he's already watching film. He's in bed. The upper room.
Yeah, I checked the weather. It's going to be about, I think it's 37 degrees at game time, so not awful. That's kind of about what it was when we went up there last year. I think, when you have these kind of situations, we don't have a whole bunch of information when you talk about AC Reynolds, because we haven't seen them against Charlotte team. We've only seen one example. I compared defenses. Again, the Tripstone defense is aggressive enough. I think we'll see a similar result to, their what they experienced versus Chambers. I think Butler's long. Their front 6 or 7 guys, they're going to be extremely aggressive and they're going to make plays. I always talk about the Coleman brothers. They're, the stat chasing, tackle for loss monsters there. So I think AC Reynolds will experience, a little bit of struggle similar to what they did this past week. I think the other side of that is, again, going up there with the sophomore quarterback, cold weather, big time game on the road, packed house. How will Coach Hales treat that? Is he, you're going to be a little more, lean on the run and allow for that? Or is he going to look to have some big plays to Current, some big plays to Mekhi Carr, big plays to Eli Sylvester in the passing game? Because, again, we look at some of the big games that have been successful. You've heard one of those 3, especially like a DeQuadre Current, has been big for them. Those guys have to do the same thing. And I think it was mentioned earlier about passes being dropped. It's going to be a little cold. It's going to be a little, I think the weather is going to be okay. It won't be rainy, but you got to go up to a different environment and make those same type plays. If that offense can do it, if they can limit their turnovers, I think they're going to be successful. And it's going to look just like the 10 wins rather than the turnovers that caused the 2 losses.
I'd like to take a moment right here to affirm once again and give a tip of the hat to the visionary insight of Coach Jonathan Grice and something that he said all year long on this show. Well, these 4 games in the West are affirming and reaffirming. Now look at the infusion or the two-way tinging of 336 and 704 tendencies in creating these elite level matchups right here, and how each area code has helped the other get in this position. We're in a position to watch 4 games in the 4A West, and not a single one of them is being played at a Charlotte Mecklenburg school site. We thought that was unthinkable 20 years ago, that a playoff Friday before Thanksgiving and not a single game is being played at a CMS site.
Like Garrett said,
wow. But that is a tribute. That is a tribute to what Coach Grice has spoken about all season long, and how we've seen the two-way tinging of some of the prevailing tendencies of 336 football and 704 football on each other, and how both area codes are stronger because of what they've done for each other to create these games, which we're all going to enjoy. Are we seeing a swinging of the pendulum? I won't go that far yet, but the impact of it is palpable and speaks very highly to both of those area codes. So well done, Coach Grice.
Weather, the humidity settles up there in that stadium. I've been there several times, so that cold and humidity can be tough. I think a lot's going to depend on the quarterback, Butler's quarterback. He does not turn over, comes into the game and has a good, solid ball game. I think Butler can win this ball game, but a lot is going to depend on that right there.
All right, thanks, Dale. And again, everybody, that was a phenomenal breakdown there for A. All right, before we get into me whooping up on Griner, let's get to a special G&G edition of Fresh Faces. What's going on, everybody? This is another special G&G edition of Fresh Faces. Again, round two of the playoffs. Even this late in the season, Griner, there's some guys and some faces, again, as we say, from Murphy to Manio, that you need to know about. Let's go to Thomasville and start with Nathan Carr out of Leadville. Again, a big 42-28 win over Northwest Cabarrus. Carr ran 26 times for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also he threw for 113 yards and 2 scores. A 6'1", 185-pound senior has 173 carries for 1,343 yards rushing and 24 touchdowns. Additionally, it's passed for 1,796 yards and 23 touchdowns. Griner, what do we like about this two-way threat right here?
He's doing it all. Even at halftime, he's serving hot dogs. I can tell you that right now. Does it all. It's filling up the stat sheet. I was like, runs the ball 26 times. Oh, we're talking about a running back. No, this is the quarterback that just happens to run the ball 26 times as well.
And he looks dominant here. Again, it's one of those guys, like, as soon as he sees it's not open, he's going to make sure he runs and get some yards here. And again, that's a grass field at Northwest Cabarrus. So he's out there looking like he's on a different level of playing surface than these guys are. So big-time game, again, has Ledford in the third round after that impressive performance on the road against Northwest Cabarrus. Let's go ahead and head out to Crest to look at Aiden Carson. Again, sophomore running back here at 13 carries for 134 yards and a touchdown, and a big 42-15 win over Oak Grove. 5'11", 160-pound running back. He has 896 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns this season, averaging 7.5 yards per pop. Again, we've talked about, the quarterback Husky. We talked about Green, the big-time receiver. They've got a young running back in the stables here that's going to do some big-time work here.
Yeah, he's real like sneaky with his running ability. He's able to get skinny at the right time and finish off the run. I like this guy's ability. He's a sophomore guy, but he puts his shoulders down to get across the pylon right there. But there's times where he reminds you of like a Le'Veon Bell type the way he runs. He gets real skinny during contact when he's trying to sliver his way to get a couple extra yards. But if it's near the pylon, he'll drop his shoulders and give you what he's got. Like him a lot.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you see the shiftiness there. He definitely looks raw. That looks like a raw sophomore running back. But I mean, the talent is undeniable here.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely excited to see that. If they have the big time receiver, big time quarterback. We knew someone was going to emerge on that offense, and good to see Aiden Carson here. Let's go on up the mountains here to Asheville. Again, Jared Glenn out of AC Reynolds. We saw, watch the game against Chambers, kicked a big-time game-winning 41-yard field goal that dealing with a high snap on that play and a big 17-16 win over Chambers. Again, his game-winning kick came with 87 seconds left in the game. For the season, Glenn is a senior. Great way to go out. They've still got another round, of course, with Butler coming up there. He's averaging 45.3 yards on kickoffs with 7 touchbacks, 36 yards on punts, and he's got 55 kicking points. Again, that's 46 of 50 for point after touchdowns and all 3 of his field goal attempts. Griner, I think you were out there earning your big-time win. Watching his kick and watching his coolness under pressure was something to behold. Griner,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about that and talk about making big-time kicks.
Well, I think that's huge that to take down the reigning, defending, champions, getting to the state championship, 4 years in a row now? They lost last year. To be able to take them down in their home crowd, and he did it with a one-step kick, like the high snap. He had to pause it. He didn't have his momentum. He had Thundercat written on his leg, and he boomed it for the 41 yards. So that's big-time one-step guy, Clydesdale horse leg.
I love to hear it. Again, that fresh face we all needed to know there. Let's go on out to Alamance County. We've got Logan Foss from Southern Alamance. This junior running back had 26 carries for 170 yards and 3 touchdowns in a big-time upset 38-32 win over New Hanover out there in Wilmington. For the season, Foss has 227 carries for 1,366 yards and 18 rushing touchdowns. Again, this was a team we saw New Hanover. We talk about how they beat Butler. We're a team that I thought that was going to be pretty good. But this kid Logan, I mean, you see him just running through the defense there. Big time guy. What do you like about him, Griner?
I just love. I'm looking for the way he runs the ball. I mean, you talking about getting your shoulder pads down, come get you some. This guy right here is tough, hard-nosed, Tim Tebow-like at fullback. You can see why they won this game. Upset. It was a toughness factor. This guy runs with toughness.
Definitely. I mean, we saw him, it looks like a two-way player there. Again, another candidate for the Ice Bath Award. Another big-time guy there. But, again, fresh faces, another addition. As we talk from Murphy to Manio in the playoffs, you got a big-time performance. You're somebody new that hasn't really been highlighted out here. Please reach out to us at Observer Preps. Let us be known. Reach out to Langston Lawrence Jr. Again, from Murphy to Manio, if you have a big-time performance and haven't been highlighted, we want to know about you. That's it for another edition of Fresh Faces. I'm Grice. That's Griner. We'll see you next week.
You're so smooth there, Coach Grice. I love that Tebow reference. But by the way, we see us in the 3-shot, which means only one thing. Let's lock the door.
Welcome to another edition
All right, man. Looks like we had a little bit of an echo right there, but hey, we'll get through this. We got Coach Grice, we got Coach Griner, coach versus coach. Coach Griner, I'm assuming you're going to defer?
Yes, definitely.
All right, this is coming straight to you, Grice. Question 1, the Knights coach versus coach. With the recent uproar over Kanye and Kyrie's tweets, should high school students' social medias be monitored more? You're up, Coach.
I mean, yes, it should be. I mean, I would even take out the first part of that. I mean, I think, we're all fathers here, in addition to coaches or have coached. Yes, the social media should be monitored. I'm friends with, almost all of our kids on there, at least definitely any of the guys that are in my position group. And I don't know whether Instagram does it on purpose or knows, but like if they get on live, usually I get a notification like it's something I did. So I've caught 1 or 2 of my kids starting a live and, had to get off there real quick because they were doing something they didn't need to be doing. So, I mean, I think this question is a little unfair as far as it's something to argue. But yes, they should be monitored. We should make sure we're taking care of them to make sure they are making the right decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's hard to argue this point because the aspect of social media is so important. I've never seen how colleges can break things down to the point where like they literally can look at what you've liked on Twitter. I mean, they can break this stuff down. If you like certain things, they can start breaking down the type of kid you are and it can affect you. So it's bigger than we can even imagine. If you want to make more money, you want to get more ability to get bigger offers. Say you're a guy that's in the middle of the road and you haven't broke through that big Division I. Well, that one factor could be your social media. It could be the curse words. It could be what you're posting and what you're liking on Twitter or whatever the case may be on Instagram. Very huge in today's society and recruiting.
I couldn't agree more with both of you, men. Very, very true. Let's move on now to question number 2 here, coach versus coach. With Hendon Hooker, C.J. Stroud slowing down, is Drake May a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate? You're up, Coach Grice. Coach Griner, I'm sorry.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, we're stuttering because we're looking at what Grice said before about Hendon Hooker. Now, all of a sudden, Griner's, comments about Drake May is the man. He's legendary now. He's going to be the next Heisman this year. If he stays on the same pace, He's got tough matchups these next couple of games. If he stays on the same pace, he will be the Heisman at the end of the year.
Oh, you mean playing real competition finally? Got you. So he's actually finally playing real teams.
Yeah.
And so again, I look at people that are smarter than us. I go out to the place that has the most money made in the world, which is Las Vegas. They've got Drake May third on this at over, I think, plus 500. Who is he behind? CJ Stroud, Hendon Hooker. So yes, he is a Heisman threat. But when you add the word legit in there, he's going up there to enjoy the nice dinner, the suit, and maybe get ready for next year when he has the opportunity. Now, if this were to say in his career, I agree with you. I'm right there with you. This year, no, he's not better, and he hasn't had the significant win that Hendon Hooker has had, beating one of the top teams in the country. He hasn't had the win that he hasn't had the performances that CJ Stroud has had, and he's not going to get that this year. Again, he's going to be great. I think he's going to be great. He better hope that he has the career that Hendon Hooker has had, the year that he's had at Tennessee. Hendon Hooker.
CJ Stroud has a strong defense on Ohio State. I mean, name the teams that they have defeated. They haven't beat anybody world beaters either. Okay,
I agree, but his numbers have been better.
Hendon Hooker.
But CJ's been there. I think that's the part. Like Drake May, again, as I stated, Drake May will be the leader probably next year starting the season.
Who has the best stats right now, even with the bad defense? Who has the best stats right now, even with the bad defense?
He hasn't played anybody.
It's not even close, though.
It matters. I'm sorry, Grundy. That may not matter to you, but that matters.
It does matter.
The people that make this choice, that matters. He hasn't played anybody. Hendon Hooker's
why
worst
game. CJ Stroud there if they haven't played anybody.
His bad game was against Georgia. I'm sorry. He had a bad game. Bonus had a bad game against Georgia, and he's right there. Hendon Hooker is great. Stop. It's okay.
I'm not saying Hooker. All these three guys are great. I'm just saying Drake May stays on this same pace the next two games. You're going to change your theory, and I just want you to be like,
he's not. He's not. Okay. Again, that's the thing. Hendon Hooker plays some teams too that he's going to have a great chance against.
All right, we'll see.
All right, man. Final question here, coach versus coach. Coach Grice, staying with you on this one. As soon as here we go. With the playoffs started in fewer teams, should the NCHSAA add an extra official? Coach Grice, I know that you're an official in collegiate ranks. This is probably a big question for you. What do you think?
No, well, so I'll give the surprising answer here and say I don't think that they should add an official in the playoffs. And again, that would be going from a 5-man to a 7-man crew. Here's my reasoning here. You deal with a lot of officials. Now, granted, the playoffs have the top officials from each of the different areas. The fact of having an official go from a 5-man or working as 5-man mechanics to a 7-man mechanics in the most crucial point in the season is something that I don't think that we should experiment with. Again, you talk about perception. You have a situation where an official who's been working 5-man mechanics all year may make a slight error mechanics wise on something that was different from having 5 officials to 7. Again, that gives it the look or the perception that he's not qualified or that he doesn't know what he's doing, which is something that we want to steer away from in some of our bigger games. I think that, when you get to the playoffs, you've heard a lot less about, oh, God, these officials were horrible. They're awful. The only thing that you may get is that you have teams that may go and play in different areas where officials aren't used to the way teams play. Again, some of these mountain teams might not be used to some more spread, high-flying offenses. That was more a thing of the past, but I think that stylistic style of play, speed, are some of the different things you see. Keep it the way it is. We've got the best of the best officials in the state working in 5-man crews right now. You're not going to have problems.
I just think, the officiating is so different. It's vague from different spot. It could be one guy that, highlights cursing a whole lot, and then guys are being ejected for cursing. Then you go to another game where cursing's all over the place. It's just, you have to adjust. It's almost like a basketball game. Like, all right, they're calling this type of foul and stuff. I don't think the extra official is necessarily helping. What I would love to see right now is a trial run of some type of way that we have an official in a booth that's watching a film that literally is not making decisions, but whenever there's something that's not right, not quite sure about something, they call up there and just say, hey, did you see this? Is it clear? And then they can come together and make a decision before they just throw a flag and like, well, I think I saw this, or I think this catch was happened. Someone to just help confirm. We don't have replay. I'm not saying we need replay, but this is a good time to do a trial run where someone's watching something on a screen to help out because they all have headsets now.
But that's a slippery slope. That's a slippery slope. I'm not like you have. So you have the booth official that's going to do things for simple, like, hey, it's 3rd and 2 instead of 4th and 2. You have someone that's there, and again in the playoffs, you have your observer, assigned observer that's there to monitor to make sure that mechanic things are correct. You can't be in a situation where you're taking away from people's judgment. One, that's going to slow the flow of the game because again, someone makes a pass interference judgment, someone's up there saying it's not pass interference. Who are we going to believe? The guy that's 5 feet away or the guy that's 30 feet away in the booth? Again,
I'm not saying every play.
Had we listened to somebody that's way in the booth, you wouldn't have won that game versus West Meck. That's also
that's incorrect. We still win the game. We kicked the field goal. We'll go back to that again if you want to re-talk about that. But that was in the first quarter.
But you don't win 7-0. Let's say that.
That might be but we still win the game. That's all that matters.
Field goal kickers. All right now.
So look, he's real good kicker, real good. All right, what I'm saying is there's about 3 to 4 incidences in the game where officials come together and when they're not quite sure about something, they don't have the eyes or the angle. That's a great opportunity where we can take advantage of something like that. This is a trial run because you don't want that one mistake like the West Meck. Say that was in the 4th quarter in a playoff game, you can make that correct judgment because you have that booth official. You might not even use them at all, but that 3 or 4 incidences in the game. And you're coming together. He's in there. Hey guys, I did see it clearly. It was this. You see what I'm saying? Now,
I'm not listening to no man and no booze.
I'm just saying it can be. He can be like I didn't have the angle.
That's like you. You want a dad in the stands at the top of the stands telling you.
I'm talking about end zone cameras are a real thing. I got one. You can see a lot. Promise you.
You guys had a great debate. Gary's watching the Star Heels who escaped with a 6-point win. I know you watching.
Did I kick him out? Did I literally kick him out of here? Did I whip him out?
I think that's crap.
I kicked him out of here.
I'm signing off. I'm done.
No, hold on, Grace. I got a question for you, Grace. If Drake May beats Clemson, does that bump him up the Heisman list?
Depends.
You shouldn't be play anybody.
Yeah. Depends on how he plays. Right.
I'm sorry, Notre Dame just whooped them pretty good too.
If he plays well, if he throws 4 or 5 tutties against Clemson, would you put him up there or no?
It's under consideration. I need to see how the game goes. Yes.
They can mess around. Get to the
pride. Pride's a real thing, man. Pride's a real thing.
Notre Dame's a real thing too. That win that they had with them had the quarterback out there looking like that.
Notre Dame beat somebody else.
They also almost lost to Navy.
They beat Clemson.
Yeah, that's
what I'm talking about. Football. Notre Dame and the quarterback out there was looking good too. Again, let's talk.
The one thing you got to understand is North Carolina Heisman is about the best player. All right, he's literally vaulting Carolina to be relevant right now. They would not be relevant.
It's awful this year. Clemson's not even going to make the freaking tournament. ACC is the Pac-12.
Clemson got ranked 9th in the latest CFP ranking. Sam, it's 10-15. I got to do basketball. It's time for your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are there's a lot of people on social media criticizing our fan base right now with West Charlotte. I'm calling out. I'm just saying. I would love. They say Lion Pride is nationwide. I would love to see that.
I'm just gonna let you go ahead.
I'm just saying. They say Lion Pride is nationwide. I would love to see it at Kings Mountain. These kids deserve the support. They're in the 3rd round of the playoffs. I don't know when the last time West Charlotte's been there. Not really big a story, and I just know that they have worked really hard.
It's probably been 2006.
You got trolled hard, man.
2006.
All right. Hey, at the end of the day, we're here to play football, and if we don't have the fan base, guess what? Our kids are going to still play hard. But it'd be nice to see that roar in line and just being able to see it, look in the stands and see those kids say, hey, I got someone in my corner too, because we're going to go against the other side, and they're going to be filled up. And it would be nice. It'd be nice to see that. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well,
that is true.
Last week we went 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I promised never to go that long again. And this week we've gone 2 hours and 17 minutes.
It's good football, baby. It's good football right now.
I don't know. Maybe we need to start at 7:30 next week. I don't know. But
guys, fewer games to cover.
Say again.
I said less games next week.
Games to cover.
But you guys' insights are so great. Anyway, that's Sam. I'm Langston. That's the guru, the #1 voice of high school football. That's Gary Richmond. That's Dale Ross, longtime follower of Charlotte Mecklenburg football. The contrarian Alex Bass, the guru 2, Grice, and the guru in training signed off to go watch basketball. We are talking preps, and we'll see you next week.